To survive, I always remember this saying. It's not about hiding twice, but about carving out a path to survival with your own hands. I once saw with my own eyes the Yen nation gather millions of people to establish a country, occupying over 3 million square kilometers and forcing humans and alien races to coexist peacefully. I also heard tales of the 2099 expedition, where the human army swept across the wasteland and even launched satellites into orbit to uncover the secrets of this world. When I found out they were preparing to feed themselves to the tigers, actively stepping into the encirclement to counterattack the alien races, amidst that chaotic situation, only one thing came to my mind: opportunity. After months of grinding and accumulating bit by bit, the forces in my hands are no longer insignificant. If I still cowered at this point and missed a massive opportunity on par with destroying the false god, then that person absolutely wouldn't be me. When it's time to retreat, I can pull out completely. Even if the enemy strikes at my door, I can endure and bide my time. But when it's time to charge, I won't hesitate. I will swing my iron fists and smash those evil gods into dust. That is the true law of survival in this wasteland. That is the way to live, and to live better. Since you've made up your mind, I won't stop you. I'll fully support you with intelligence. As for heading out to sea, you can only rely on yourself. I looked into Zhong Qingshu's resolute eyes. In her eyes, there wasn't a single trace of doubt toward me. Back then, during the battle with the false god, she fell from the 4th floor into the snow and lost consciousness, missing the moment I personally slayed a god. Like the witnesses, like Chen Shun, everyone had their own version of the story. But there was one common thread. Everyone placed absolute faith in me. In their eyes, there was no problem I couldn't solve. Let alone going out to sea to fight alien races. If I just raised my arm and shouted to go fight the sea god, I could rally at least 1 million people behind me. With that kind of momentum, Zhong Qingshu was naturally no exception. Thank you. I saw a trusting smile bloom on her face. That look shook my heart. It was like seeing her silhouette in the ruins of time, the one who watched me leave without a chance to say goodbye. The same eyes, the same smile, the same unwavering faith in me. The faith that I would return. If you survive and set foot on the new continent, you owe me a promise. In the ruins of time, I could let my guard down. I could let myself show protectiveness and desire, because there, it was absolutely safe. But in this wasteland, where you're alive in the morning and could be dead by night, a promise is no longer a romance. It's a responsibility. It's a man's resolve. Even if the sky falls, I will protect you. I stood up, paused for a beat, then stepped forward and pulled her into my arms. The embrace made her face flush red. She tried to push me away, lightly tapping my chest, both angry and shy. No way, you're getting too smooth with your words now. I'm not saying anymore. I'm heading back. You need to speed up the shipbuilding. Time is running out. I know. Until the situation is settled, until there is peace, it's not the time for romance. I understood that, and she understood it even better. Watching her silhouette walk out the door, relieved yet full of spirit, I didn't delay either and immediately followed. Late afternoon. The sun scorched as if trying to melt this barren land. The moment I stepped out the door, sweat poured down. The hot air felt like it was roasting me alive. In the nearby clearing, a portion of the prisoners was being escorted toward Iron Rock Mountain. The rest, the stubborn ones, were writing confessions to sign and take responsibility. I glanced over to make sure everything was fine, then closed the shipyard doors and called Oreo back to the shelter. The supplies brought back from the Zhenliangfang ruins hadn't been fully inventoried yet. Among them, the robots and the computer were the 2 most important items because they could massively boost productivity if used right. Especially if the robots could be activated, everything from processing cotton and food to making plastics and gunpowder could be handled. Even the destroyer's manufacturing stages could be handed over to them to save time. I told Oreo to take the 2 little Spark kids out to play since I hadn't had time to pay attention to them lately. Then, I grabbed a brand new computer and a bag of mini robots, walked over to the workbench, and plugged them in. Time is money. I can't afford to be slow. Hopefully, Mafei assembled this well. The dumber a robot is, the easier it is to use. It's best if it just runs the moment you turn it on. Over the past few days, thanks to the destroyer blueprint, the game had crammed all sorts of mechanical knowledge into my head while I slept. But that knowledge, at best, only brought me to the level of a senior engineering student. Not enough to dissect an AI robot. As for programming, since I had some free time recently, I taught myself some code and even spent disaster points to practice in the combat training room. My progress wasn't bad at all. I took a deep breath, feeling a bit nervous, looked at the 2 items in front of me, and spent 2 disaster points to check their detailed stats. Custom desktop computer, excellent description. Assembled by player manhwa. 4th generation computer. Poor performance under heavy loads, but extremely low power consumption. Still has a few commendable points. CPU, Intel i9-11900K. Cooler, AIO 360. Motherboard, 14 plus 2 power phases. GPU, RTX 3090. RAM, 16 GB x4. SSD, 1 TB x2. HDD, for TB. PSU, 1200W. Monitor, 27-inch, 4K 144 Hz. Holy crap. With specs like this, the game still calls its performance poor? A chill ran down my spine when I saw the evaluation at the top of the description. I thought I'd pulled some technological dinosaur, like an abacus or something. But the further I read, the more stunned I became. Good lord, back on Earth, a rig like this would cost at least $50 million. Yet here, it's criticized as outdated. An RTX 3090. The dream of countless young men. Just the 1200W power supply alone shows how beefy this thing is. I opened the case and summoned a gust of wind controlled by the Sphinx to blow the dust out of every crevice. As serious as if I were performing a ritual to resurrect a divine artifact. I carefully plugged in every cable, seated the cards, checked the power, and reassembled everything. And just as I hoped, one of the pinnacles of human technology from Earth was resurrected in the middle of the wasteland. I pressed the power button. The cooling fans whirred softly, and immediately after, the screen lit up with a familiar boot interface. Back when Earth still had software copyrights, whether it was iOS, Kylin, or Harmony OS, everything was stifled under the shadow of original copyrights. But now Microsoft is gone, and everyone has to fend for themselves. So when the letters FOS appeared on the screen, I chuckled. FOS, huh? No copyright. So he just coded his own operating system. manhwa really is a beast. The computer didn't have a password. With just a few simple clicks, I was into the system. Clean interface, clear logic, no flashy nonsense, no bloatware. Truly an OS written by a tech guy. Skimming through the documents manhwa left behind, I opened a few built-in programming software to test. After just a few test inputs, I successfully fired off my first Hello World. Writing an OS for a destroyer is still far beyond my current skill level. But hey, I have the system. Getting my hands on this computer meant the technological level of my underground base had just jumped a whole tier. Before I could play around with it more, the robot's info panel popped up. Semi-intelligent worker robot model FFF. Exquisite, crafted by player manhwa using various precious materials. Integrated with a high-performance processing chip and a complete logic/judgment module. Capable of basic AI learning. Specializes in manufacturing, repairing, and operating. If supplied with enough energy, it can replace humans in most production tasks. Current variants. Manufacturing, logic 82%, agility 70%, AI learning 21%. Combat, logic 62%, agility 41%, AI learning 0%. Gathering, logic 71%, agility 50%, AI learning 39%. All-rounder, undeveloped. Special skills. Indestructible, recovers 1% wear and tear after 24 hours of rest. Self-learning. If provided with a network and materials, the robot will self-learn 3 main skills and self-upgrade. Easy to upgrade, currently locked. Potential, 3 stars. Salvage value, 120 disaster points per robot. Truly worthy of manhwa's dozen years of research. Trading in these 36 robots would net over 4,000 points. This value is even crazier than an epic blueprint. I clenched my fists, too moved for words. If one day I can fully understand the documents manhwa left behind and build a robot production line in the base, not only will manufacturing output skyrocket, but I'll also have a steady source of disaster points. Moreover, these robots haven't reached their limits yet. Aside from the manufacturing group with over 80% logic, the other models still have a sky full of potential. Once I perfect those 3 categories and move toward mass production, my base will enter a true industrial revolution. I've seen Ma Fei's robots charge into battle with my own eyes. If they were already that terrifying with these stats, I have every reason to look forward to this. I went back to the storage room, grabbed a data cable, opened the robot's back panel, and connected it straight to the computer. The control interface popped up. Semi-intelligent sounds impressive, but at its core, it's just a set of repetitive command loops. When I realized the source code was far beyond my reading comprehension, I tapped the desk and called up the system. Upgrading it entirely to omniscient and omnipotent would definitely cost points I couldn't afford. But if I just use the system to assist with a minor upgrade, why not give it a try? Today's daily report hasn't arrived yet. It'll probably be bundled with yesterday's and arrive tomorrow. Calculating it, I still have 8,200 points. System, please don't dangle top-tier goods to tempt me anymore. It's not that I don't want to use them, I just don't have the money. Comforting myself that crying poor to the system isn't embarrassing, I muttered while issuing the appraisal command. A blue light radiated from the robot's chest. Because its tech level wasn't too high, the scanning process was very fast. Just 2 or 3 seconds later, the info panel appeared with a comment harsher than a professor grading a thesis. Semi-intelligent worker robot model FFF. Exquisite description. This robot has absolutely zero technological aesthetic. Designed with the philosophy of just brute force it. From the outer shell to the transmission shafts, everything is made of expensive materials, yet the movement efficiency is a negative 3,520%. This is truly a combination of the crouching dragon and the fledgling phoenix. Genius plus genius equals a design flaw. Mechanics: 15 basic knowledge errors, 34 logic errors, 129 anti-human errors, 422 detailed engineering errors. Bionic AI: 69 basic errors, 1,235 cognitive errors, 5,520 design errors. Logic processing chip: 326,850 lines of redundant code, 45,023 instances of duplicate code, 28,030 errors causing increased energy consumption. AI learning: completely wrong. Mechanical potential: completely wrong. Maintenance module: completely wrong. Upgrade paths: 1. Bionic mechanics, 21,960 points. 2. Combat special agent, 17,280 points. 3. All-rounder combat engineer, 43,200 points. 4. Psionic energy super soldier, 36 million points plus 36 psionic energy crystals. Evaluation: this genius project, Wang Duiyu would definitely invest in you. Mother of God. Ma Fei's robots are this flawed. This is beyond flawed. I gaped at the scroll-like list of errors and the upgrade paths. I was genuinely shocked. In those ruins, I saw firsthand how powerful those robots were. If it weren't for my abundant ammo and Mu-Air dual-wielding guns, I would have had no choice but to run, even with a gun. So I never expected that such terrifying machines would be rated as complete trash by the system. In fact, if Ma Fei hadn't used premium materials to brute force the design flaws, the system might have roasted him even harder. It seems that if I can build a true robot army in the future, a steel flood sweeping across everything is entirely feasible. The human body is weak, but if I had tens of thousands of psionic energy super soldiers, I'd blow the roof off whatever sea god is out there. Thinking of those web novels with overpowered mechanical armies, I gulped and stared intently at the 4th upgrade path, my eyes shining like headlights. But, beautiful as it is, reality is bitter. I couldn't even afford to upgrade one robot along that path. I had to turn back to the other 3 options and calculate carefully. Bionic mechanics, 21,960 points, which divides to just 610 points per unit. Combat special agent, cheaper, 480 points per unit. All-rounder combat engineer, the most expensive, 1,200 points per unit. Obviously, I didn't have enough points to upgrade them all. Even if tomorrow's report gifted me an extra 10,000 points, it still wouldn't be nearly enough. Besides, I have to keep at least 10,000 points for setting sail. Safety first. This time, Whatever can be saved, must be saved. Moreover, I don't need to use that many robots right now. I pulled out a pen and paper, hunched over the desk, and started calculating. A moment later, I had finalized the first phase of the upgrade plan. Most urgent needs, manufacturing robots. Bionic mechanics, food and cotton processing, 2 units. Explosives and ammo manufacturing, 1 unit. Shipbuilding, 4 units. 7 units equals 4,270 points. For combat robots, I temporarily need 1 to guard the shipyard at night, which is 480 points. Total cost, 4,750 points. Remaining, 3,450 points. I'll hold off on the all-rounder combat engineer line for now. After careful consideration, I selected 8 robots for the first batch of upgrades. Compared to spending thousands or tens of thousands of points at once, spending a few hundred per unit really felt like a bargain. In just 3 minutes, the robots brought back from Mafei's ruins were completely transformed. The bionic mechanics robots were coated in a silver sheen, shaped like real humans with muscles, knee joints, and arm joints. They looked exactly like highly detailed anatomical models. The combat special agent robot was covered in mottled camouflage, its 2 arms equipped with hydraulic pincers 3 times larger than before, and its base retained the treads but was reinforced with a recoil-absorbing exoskeleton. Just looking at their appearance, they already seemed worth the money. But I opened the new control panel, skimmed through the next tier of upgrades, and made a decision on the spot. Upgrade 1 manufacturing robot and 1 combat robot to all-rounder combat engineers. With machines, appearance and hardware are never the deciding factors. The core lies in the operating logic of the brain. Good logic can turn something clunky into something refined, and something crude into something excellent. Turn trash into gold. That was a universally acknowledged truth among all AI companies back on Earth. And that's why I chose to upgrade their logic by another tier. 2,400 points, gone in a flash. Seeing my survival points drop to just 1,050, I gave a bitter laugh and closed the panel. Survival points are great and all, but they vanish the moment you use them. Days of grinding, gone in minutes. It's fine, as long as I head out to sea and pull off a few big moves. The points will naturally flow back into my hands. I stood up, and while the robots were upgrading, I gathered the rest and took them out to the garage for mass charging. In Mafei's design, even though many parts were rated poorly by the system, the quick swap, detachable battery feature was incredibly valuable, and I was keeping this feature at all costs. Fast charging or high-capacity batteries are outdated. Battery swapping is the true soul of modern mechanics. Going out to sea is a massive undertaking. If a robot runs out of battery mid-combat, it would literally backfire on me. To prevent that, I plan to make 6 to 10 dedicated energy supply robots. They wouldn't need upgrades. Their sole daily mission would be to run around swapping batteries for the combat and manufacturing robots. The wiring in the garage was heavy-duty. Charging 10 units at once was no problem. Even though the power source wasn't fully stable and electricity consumption was extremely fast, watching the battery bars of each robot slowly fill up warmed my heart amidst this absolute poverty. Eat up, eat your fill. Work properly tomorrow. I cranked the generator up to maximum capacity, then ran all over the 3rd floor to plug in the newly upgraded robots. While waiting, I dove back into learning programming. Luckily, I had stockpiled quite a bit of diesel, so I didn't have to be too stingy with the electricity. By 8 p.m., all the robots were 100% charged, and I even managed to create 10 spare batteries. These electricity-guzzling monsters burned through nearly 300 liters of diesel in just a few hours. All right, let's see what you money-burning machines are really capable of. I stood up excitedly, stored the 4 manufacturing robots and 1 combat robot in my inventory, then opened the garage door and sprinted straight toward the shipyard in the dark of night. 17 days left until the destroyer officially launches. All the criminals from the Rust shelter had been interrogated after nightfall. By past 8 p.m., aside from a few villagers still using flashlights to sort the loot, everyone else had returned to rest at the peak of Iron Rock Mountain. Busy all day, no one had time to tidy up. Progress slowed down a bit, but after wiping out the entire bandit gang and hauling back a massive pile of loot, the whole village was thrilled. Even after getting back, they eagerly fought to join the inventory process. Two militiamen from the interrogation station were still stationed at the shipyard entrance. But when they saw me approaching, they just gave a crisp salute and immediately withdrew. I never liked having guards at the door, and this had become common knowledge in Hope Village. As for this weird misunderstanding, I didn't bother explaining. The quieter, the better. The truck whose windshield Muir had smashed the other day had already been fitted with a new one traded for food by the villagers. It was properly reassembled and parked next to the shipyard. The number 2 painted on the side of the truck looked pretty ironic right now. I walked over, did a quick visual check, found nothing unusual, nodded, and followed the scaffolding back to the main entrance of the shipyard. Master is here. Muir has been guarding the door very seriously. It was leaning its whole body against the door. It wasn't until I got close that Muir jolted awake, drool still running down its chin. I patted its shoulder hard, and it scrambled to sit up, scratching its head and yelping as if someone had poked it. Oh well. Hearing Oreo's disdainful howl from behind me, Muir's dramatic act instantly crumbled. Its face flushed red, and it instinctively shuffled 2 steps back. All right, if you're sleepy, go back to sleep. You don't need to guard the door from tomorrow on. Being dragged out of a dream, after working like crazy for over 10 hours in the ruins, and then running off to help the villagers interrogate prisoners. How could Muir have the stamina I do? I can recover with energy water and the Shanghai card. If it weren't for the good food and the villagers pampering it all afternoon, it probably would have passed out in the shelter by now. Muir isn't sleepy. Muir wants to wait for Master at the gate. It seemed to guess that I'd be working through the night to build the ship, so it plopped down in front of the gate, leaned against the wall, and pretended to look alertly into the distance. That attitude made Oreo roll its eyes again, though its mocking tone softened a bit. All right then, you sit here. Oreo can handle the patrols. I rubbed Muir's head, thought for a moment, then pulled 2 energy fruits from my inventory and handed one to each of them. Energy fruits were originally meant to stimulate biological evolution, but to these 2, they were no different from snacks. Of course, even as a snack, no delicacy could surpass the fruit their genes instinctively craved. The moment it received it, Muir's eyes lit up, and it swallowed it in one gulp. Oreo was much more elegant, holding the fruit in its mouth, sitting cross-legged, and chewing slowly. Guard the door. I'm going into work. Seeing Oreo nod, I opened the main gate, stepped inside, and sat right at the central control console. During the day, this place was covered with sturdy steel plates to serve as a temporary meeting room for Hope Village. But at night, when I pressed the button on the side, a loud clack echoed. Driven by the mechanical transmission shaft, the steel plates slid back, revealing 3 high-tech control screens. In front of each screen was a dedicated joystick. The first joystick controlled the auxiliary arm to secure the steel plates. The second and third controlled the 2 welding arms to join the steel together. I pressed the start button. A few seconds later, the mini generator on the shipyard roof roared to life like a howling beast. Unlike the massive power system in the shelter, the shipyard only needed to run the control panel and a few lights. Since most of the mechanical arms ran on diesel and the power draw was light, the noise was tolerable. I sat in the pitch-black shipyard, patiently waiting for the system to stabilize. About 3 to 5 minutes later, light gradually spread from the ceiling, illuminating the entire space through the explosion-proof glass. 8 floodlights on the scaffolding turned on simultaneously, illuminating every corner. The 3 screens completed their diagnostic checks and switched to manufacturing standby mode. I had operated this a few times already, so my hands were used to it. But this time, the goal wasn't to build the ship myself. I waved my hand, and the 4 bionic robots landed on the control console with a heavy thud, clanking loudly. Turning them all on, I placed 3 of them in front of the 3 joysticks. The last one, the combat engineer robot that had been upgraded twice, with the advanced logic chip, was placed in the main control position to also handle overall coordination. Teaching them to build a ship had 3 main difficulties. It required the coordination of 3 joysticks. 1 robot couldn't do it all. 3 had to operate seamlessly. When materials needed to be adjusted or lowered, the auxiliary arm had to secure them in time. Otherwise, the process would be interrupted. Handling errors during manufacturing. I could fix them immediately, but robots didn't have a script for that. They had to be taught gradually through AI learning. Once these 3 points were taught, even without human intervention, the robots could perform 100% manual labor without much drop in efficiency. These 3 robots had been programmed with 19 different algorithms, enough to divide them into control groups. They just needed to learn the AI part. As for the combat engineer with the advanced logic chip, it would act as the central controller and coordinate the whole process. I assigned their tasks, marked each one, and then pressed the learning button one by one. The training session officially began. A day delayed meant an extra layer of risk. After their structural upgrades, the bionic robots moved just like real humans. Following the original manual process, I placed a steel plate into position, slowly aligned it, and secured it with the auxiliary arm. The 2 welding arms moved to the exact spots and fused it. The left screen indicated the steel plate met the standard, and the main arm returned to the material storage to grab a new one. One full cycle like this, doing it manually, took 8 to 15 minutes per plate. But while teaching, I had to operate and explain simultaneously. Sometimes I had to let the robots deduce the next step themselves. By the time the first plate was done, nearly an hour had passed. I rolled my shoulders to ease the stiffness. Seeing the 4 robots still staring at me curiously with their glowing eyes, I grimaced and continued teaching the second round. Round 2 was better. The combat engineer robot in the middle learned the fastest, completing it in just 40 minutes. Round 3, 38 minutes. Round 4. The first error, saving the whole batch, took 56 minutes. Round 5, 30 minutes. Round 6, second error, but it only took 7 minutes to fix, totaling 38 minutes. Round 7, 18 minutes. Just like that, round after round. At first, I had to supervise closely, but later I just sat to the side. After observing for about 10 minutes, the robots were working as smoothly as the wind, dropping from an hour per plate to just over 10 minutes. Once the basic production logic was formed, their speed and accuracy skyrocketed. Unlike my artisan approach, which often relied on feel, the robots with their logic chips began comparing the blueprints, analyzing the data, and self-optimizing the process. The weld seams were smoother, the steel alignment was more precise. Watching a bit longer and seeing that they maintained a speed of under 15 minutes per plate without needing much intervention, I leaned against the wall and tiredly closed my eyes. I worked all day yesterday, only sleeping 4 or 5 hours. Then I spent 16 sleepless hours in the ruins. Now I was staying up all night guiding the robots. Even with the support of energy water, I fell into a deep sleep within minutes of leaning back. In the 50 square meter shipyard, I slept soundly. Even the constant beeping after every completed robotic operation couldn't wake me. Outside, right at the shipyard gate, Muir was also sprawled out, sleeping soundly. The night dew soaked its body, but it didn't even twitch. Furthest away was Oreo. It looked like it was sleeping, but its ears kept perking up. At the slightest movement, it was clear it wasn't truly asleep. The floodlights still blazed, and the shipyard bustled all night. Steel plate after steel plate was delivered into position by the main mechanical arm. The 2 welding arms immediately moved in to join them. From a speed of 1 hour per plate at 8 p.m., by 4 a.m., it was down to just 3 minutes per plate. The 4 mechanical arms operated as if controlled by an omnipotent being. The speed was terrifyingly fast. Before the new plate even arrived, the old one was already welded. I was fast asleep, completely oblivious to this scene. The prisoners from the Rust shelter, tied up on the edge of Iron Rock Mountain, saw every detail. From the moment the shipyard lights turned on, their eyes had been drawn downward. When they saw me struggling for an hour just to finish one plate, the ringleaders of Rust sneered. Is that it? Trying to build a ship with that speed? After a few mocking remarks, the exhausted group, having been interrogated all day, slumped over and dozed off. But the peace didn't last long. In the middle of the night, an astonished "holy shit" rang out. One prisoner jolted awake first, and then gradually, the whole group woke up. Following the collective gaze, they groggily opened their eyes, looked down at the shipyard, and were left speechless. Compared to the turtle-like pace from before, the shipyard was still as bright as day, but inside, the main mechanical arm was completely different. Even the auxiliary arm and the 2 welding arms were different, moving, extending, clamping the steel, lifting, shifting, dropping, securing. After this step, even from 2 kilometers away, even looking blurrily through the lights, it was clear there wasn't a single wasted movement. Every step was so perfect, it was beautiful like art. The 2 welding arms even created overlapping afterimages, sparks flying continuously like fireworks. This is fully automated manufacturing. The bushy-bearded man stammered, but no one answered. After witnessing the 1 hour per plate scene, and now seeing this, no one believed it was AI anymore. The only answer that crossed their minds: this is Sumo's true capability. From the peak of Iron Rock Mountain, all the prisoners were wide awake. Not just awake from sleep, but awake from their previous delusions. No one spoke. No one rebelled. Everyone just stood there in dead silence, staring down. Watching the shipyard at the foot of the mountain operate. Watching Huaxia's steel dragon taking shape bit by bit, rising with absolute arrogance. So noisy. What's so noisy? All right. Is this frog croaking for real? In my dream, I thought I was standing in a rice paddy, hearing frogs croak to signal a bumper harvest. But the more I woke up, the clearer that frog sound became, right in my ear. The aching soreness all over my body was a very clear sign. This is the real world. I opened my eyes and pushed myself up from the corner of the wall where I had fallen asleep last night. Sleeping curled up at a strict 90-degree angle was pure torture. My back hurt so much it felt like it was collecting a debt. I rubbed my back, shook my head to wake up, and looked toward the source of the sound. Turns out it was these bionic robots sounding their low battery alarms. Just 1 night of running, and they were completely drained. Thank goodness I decided to save some batteries last night. Seeing the robots squatting in front of the charging station like a pack of hungry cubs, their eyes gleaming, I could only sigh. You energy addicts. Feeding you like this is going to bankrupt me. Let's see if any of you slacked off last night. Oh my God. Even though I was still aching, the sight before me made me curse out loud on reflex. Holy shit, seriously? This was done in 1 night? Standing behind the glass looking out, I couldn't see the full progress, but seeing the completely empty steel storage was enough to know something massive had happened. Without a second thought, I shoved the shipyard doors wide open and dashed outside. Muair was fast asleep in front of the door, and I stepped right on its shoulder to launch myself onto the roof. Woken up by being stepped on, it was about to grumble, but seeing it was me, it instantly flipped its attitude and went right back to sleep. On the shipyard roof, the morning sun shone softly, and a cool breeze swept across the barren land. But when my eyes landed on the destroyer under construction, my heart burned with excitement. 2 days' worth of accumulated steel, nearly 500 plates. If I had done it myself, I would have had to grind from dawn till dusk to finish. But now, the steel storage was empty. The 80-meter-long hull bottom of the Level 3 ship was nearly 2/3 complete. Just 300 to 450 more plates, and the hull bottom would be finished, entering the hull assembly phase, a phase where the speed would double. I took a deep breath. As expected, humanity's greatest strength isn't muscle, but intellect. Thought is a weapon, and steel is how our thoughts shape the world. With this efficiency, I don't need 17 days. I only need 10. In 10 days, the destroyer will enter the fine-tuning phase. Plenty of time. Looking at myself, then at the 4 robots that had worked all night, I wasn't discouraged. On the contrary, I was even more fired up. If I can gather enough robots like this when I reach the new continent, even if the game updates and bans underground expansion, I won't be afraid. With this kind of infrastructure building capability, if I want to rebuild a human metropolis, a single thought is enough. Even if I wanted to build a massive underground city, I could do it. So this was Ma Fei's original vision when he researched robots. Productivity is the ultimate god. I jumped down comfortably, rolled to absorb the impact, stood up, walked into the shipyard, and retrieved the 4 hungry robots. Opening the storage, the newly upgraded combat special agent robot also appeared. Unlike the labor robots, the special agent was pre-programmed with patrol behaviors. But the shelter currently didn't have suitable weapons for it, and the shipyard didn't have gun turrets. For now, I had to let it act as a mobile sensor to warn of surroundings. With everything sorted, my sleepiness vanished completely. I opened the door and stepped out. The morning sunlight spilled over the ground. Wake up, Muair Oreo. No more sleeping. On the wasteland at past 7 a.m., The dew was still heavy, and Mu-Er's fur was soaking wet. But hearing my call, it staggered up and let out a long yawn. Oreo was a bit tired from patrolling all night, but still alert, circling me nimbly. Standing in front of the shipyard, bathing in the early sun, I took a deep breath. The fresh morning breeze was sweet to the lungs. I pulled my spear from my storage space. It was time for morning practice. To upgrade the shelter to level 5, physical fitness was something I couldn't neglect. And there's only one way to increase physical stats: daily training. I practiced the Sioux family spear technique, every thrust and sweep powerful and decisive. My muscles, sore from sleeping slumped over all night, popped and cracked after just a few spear movements, as if being reawakened. Sweat poured down, washing away the exhaustion. In just a few minutes, my whole body felt solid and full of vitality. Seeing that Mu-Er had regained its spirit, I casually tossed it a 3-edged double-bladed knife, and the two of us started training together. Half an hour flew by in a flash. Around 7:30 a.m., the head chef of Hope Village, accompanied by 2 militiamen, carried a massive food basket and arrived right on time in front of the shipyard. One militiaman gasped in awe, "Wow, Brother Sue is amazing. With spear skills like that, back on Earth, he'd definitely be a martial arts master." The other immediately argued, "What do you know? Earth's martial arts were all just flashy performances. Brother Sue here is doing the real deal. Every move is lethal." "Lethal? For real?" I glanced at the 3 of them whispering in the distance. Seeing them set the food basket down and leave immediately, I finally retracted my spear. It feels great, finishing a morning workout and having someone deliver food right to you. Being a little lord like this suits me just fine. Retracting the spear, I flicked a few drops of sweat from my forehead, my whole body feeling unusually refreshed. In the simulated wasteland world, I had to cook every day and struggle to survive, never knowing if today's meal would be my last. But in my real world, I have people delivering food to my door, farming and development are running in parallel, and my storage is packed with supplies. I quickly walked over to the basket and opened it. Inside were portions for 1 adult and 2 little ones. The basket had 4 tiers. Tier 1, a pile of braised beef, glossy reddish-brown and incredibly fragrant, probably weighing around 3 kilos. Tier 2, 4 side dishes, shredded radish, sour and spicy potatoes, mapo tofu, and crispy stir-fried celery. Tier 3, over a dozen piping hot white steamed buns, authentic northern style. Tier 4, a large bowl of fragrant sticky rice porridge, steaming hot. Not bad at all. The supplies brought back from the Rust shelter criminals were indeed a fantastic addition to the food reserves, even upgrading the daily rations. I looked toward the road where the Rust group was escorted yesterday, recalling Lioness Connie's warning about the alien races planning to pass near the shelter. My eyes suddenly turned cold. Normally, knowing their plans, I would have led my people to smash them all to pieces. But right now is a transition period. I shouldn't cause trouble. I'll wait until the destroyer is finished and launched, then we'll see. But if any idiot wanders over on their own, after the Rust incident, I won't hold back. See one, kill one. A lavish breakfast was laid out before me. Mu-Er had gorged itself yesterday, so it didn't eat much this morning. As for me, I was so swamped yesterday, I didn't get a single proper meal. So now I was making up for it with a vengeance. A bite of beef, a bite of steamed bun, paired with some sour and spicy sides, then a slurp of hot porridge. Life is truly a dream. After eating everything clean, I wiped my mouth, packed up the basket, then gathered my things and locked up the shipyard. Leading my 2 little companions, whose bellies were also stuffed, I opened the alloy gate of the shelter. I hadn't been sitting for long when the daily report, which had been missing for 2 days, finally appeared. Finally here. Any later, and I really would have gone bankrupt. Glancing at my survival points pool, which had exactly 1,050 points left, and the deep blue glow signaling the consolidated daily report, I immediately clicked it open. Doomsday Calendar, consolidated report for February 4th and 5th. Your first village was established in the shelter. You became the village chief of 137 people, plus 10,000 points. You completed a market transaction, leaving your snooping rivals to swallow their resentment, plus 1,000 points. Practical crafting skills greatly improved while building your first handmade vehicle, plus 500 points. You purchase cheap materials and are in a great mood. Plus 300 points. Built the first major structure in the shelter, greatly boosting public morale. Plus 2,000 points. Major structure comprehensively upgraded. Plus 500 points. Successfully infiltrated the Xinliangfang ruins and discovered secrets. Plus 300 points. Decoded ancestral clues. Using national power to ascend. Plus 200 points. Maintain the upper hand in dialogue with Ma Fei, acquiring a large amount of resources. Plus 100 points. Brought back massive supplies from the ruins, accelerating shelter development. Plus 500 points. Milestone. Activated the first computer in the wasteland. Plus 200 points. Milestone. Level 1 village chief. Population exceeded 100. Plus 1,000 points. Milestone. National ascension. Grasped one of the paths to leave the apocalyptic world. Plus 500 points. Milestone. Level 1 artificial intelligence. Unlocked the first manufacturing AI. Plus 200 points. Living environment scan. Received an additional plus 679 points. Total. Plus 17,979 survival points. Current balance. 19,029 points. I burst out laughing. Work for a day, eat for half a month. What a haul. Just short of 1,000 points to hit the 20,000 mark again. As expected, only by stirring up trouble, making big moves, and digging up secrets do the points increase rapidly. My survival points pool, which had been as dry as a desert, felt like it had just been flooded by an entire river. Looking at the 5-digit number, I clenched my fists in excitement. The daily environmental evaluation points had increased significantly, but if I just lay low, I'd only get about 600 points. Meanwhile, causing trouble just once equals a whole month of lying low. It's unbelievable, but despite this massive windfall, I kept a clear head. The calm before the storm. This is probably the last big harvest before the great upheaval. Over the next 10 days, if things go extremely well, I might earn another 10,000 points at most. Pulling off something like this again won't be easy. So every single survival point must be spent with absolute precision. No wasting. After calculating, I didn't rush to upgrade the remaining robots. I plugged in the 4 nearly dead ones to charge, then slowly walked up to the 3rd floor where all the supplies were stored. Right now, the construction of my destroyer is officially on track. As long as materials are transported steadily every day, the robots will handle all the assembly. My remaining task is to build the entire control system and autopilot mode for the ship. If I have the time and conditions, I also want to develop a few sub-branches, like a fine-tuning system. Auxiliary operations. The more complete it is, the higher the ship's combat efficiency will be. Only with a comprehensive control system can I fully exploit the performance of this 80-meter monster. Sitting on a chair next to the supply storage, I skimmed through every item salvaged from the Xinliangfang ruins. Finally, I returned to the 1st floor. My eyes landed right on the massive object taking up nearly half the garage. The goods I brought back were indeed top tier, some even reaching exquisite grade with special abilities. But to head out to sea and face a war that could drag in tens of billions of creatures, those things were nothing more than toys. The only thing that gave me the guts to brave the open ocean was this one item. The vertical missile launch module sitting in the garage. I had seen it no less than 5 times in my dreams, and even personally operated it during those training sessions. I knew its overpowered nature like the back of my hand. If this module was fully compatible, my ship's firepower would far surpass World War standards and jump straight into full modernization. A single step to the heavens. Maintaining a solemn mood as if receiving a divine artifact, I carefully inspected the outer shell, then grabbed scissors from the toolbox to cut the straps securing the module. The moment I cut them, the moisture-proof tarp on the outside collapsed on its own. I gently lifted a corner of the tarp. Swish. For the first time, the vertical launch module revealed itself before my eyes in the real world. A silver shell, a massive cube, seamless, painted with the code R33. It was so majestic that just one look radiated an overbearing aura. Without rushing to sigh, I did exactly what I learned in the dream. Walked around to the back, placed my hand on the final 3 in the R33 designation, and skillfully pressed a small corner. A hidden panel popped open, revealing a red button and a text description for deployment instructions. Deployed dimensions: length 12 meters, width 8 meters, height 7.5 meters. Exactly like in the dream. If this thing wasn't built by Ma Fei himself, but scavenged from somewhere, then all the accessories should still be intact. The garage was too small to deploy it. But when I saw a microchip slot next to the button, I couldn't hold back anymore. I closed the panel. System, I choose to appraise. 1 survival point was deducted. Immediately after, the info panel appeared before my eyes. R-33 Vertical Missile Launch Module. Rare description. Designed by Redacted Company. Manufactured by Redacted Company. A missile launch module utilizing external cold launch technology, completely discarding the bulky traditional structure. Ultra-durable materials, tested millions of times without failure. Includes blueprints. R-1 Rocket Artillery Blueprint. R-3 Short-Range Ballistic Missile Blueprint. Launch mechanism: external force cold launch. Compatibility: all missiles with independent engines. All rocket artillery, various calibers. Special skills: super destructive force, increases damage by 5% to 35%. Rain of fire, increases firing rate by 500% for 60 seconds, then locks the system for 1 hour. Super precision, when equipped with radar or a fire control system, accuracy reaches 100%. Restrictions: missile launches require guidance radar. Rocket artillery requires corresponding navigation programs. Can only be installed on a level 5 ship or level 10 shelter. Salvage value: main module, 5,000 points. R-1 blueprint, 1,000 points. R-3 blueprint, 3,000 points. Total, 9,000 disaster points. Holy, just appraising it showed this bad boy was worth a whopping 9,000 points. If it were anyone else, they probably would have sold it long ago. But Ma Fei delivering it right into my hands was truly a case of the wrong guy trying to show off. Confirming once again that both blueprints were indeed inside the device, I finally felt at ease. Ever since I used the Destroyer blueprint, the game had taught me the detailed operations in my dreams, and even let me test drive it. Among all the armaments of a level 1 destroyer, this vertical launch module might not be the absolute strongest, but it was definitely in the top 3. A literal mobile fortress. Normally, paired with a suitable phased array radar, the system could consecutively launch multiple short-range ballistic missiles, striking targets locked by the radar with extreme precision. And when enemies closed in, the entire module would pop up, adjust its launch angle, and unleash 12 rockets simultaneously, creating an instant zone of destruction. It was precisely because of how overpowered it was that the first time I saw it in Ma Fei's shelter, I didn't hesitate to risk my life charging in just to get a look at it. Getting the module is only the first step. Over the next dozen days, I have to build a compatible radar and fire control system myself. As long as the next disaster hits and I head out to sea, taking down another 500 alien creatures will be enough to meet the requirements to upgrade the shelter to level 5 and unlock advanced machine tools. With medium-sized machine tools, even if I can't make missiles yet, I'll have more than enough capacity to produce rocket artillery. By then, at close range, I'll use RPGs to clean up. At long range, I'll activate the module and launch a barrage of rockets to wipe out the entire area. Amidst that kind of firepower, let's see who dares to play tricks with me. I took a deep breath, calming my overly excited mood, then covered the module back up with the moisture-proof tarp and headed up to the 3rd floor. By now, my brain was running at full capacity. Before, I was still agonizing over finding an excuse to sell weapons to the Dayuan shelter to ensure absolute safety before moving day. But now, no need to worry anymore. That shelter is still missing many links in its technology chain. The technologies humanity once possessed, if I used survival points to unlock them one by one, it would be a massive waste. On the contrary, trading directly with an official organization like Dayuan is highly profitable and mutually beneficial. After a few minutes of calculation, I pulled out my notebook and started listing the items needed for our next trade. Most importantly, radar technology. Radar, short for radio detection and ranging. The principle is very simple. Emit waves, hit a target, reflect back, and based on that, calculate distance, direction, speed, and altitude. Radar has been around since World War I. With today's modern engineering, after the knowledge explosion era, radar is practically ancient tech. Frankly speaking, as long as you have a proper blueprint, building a basic one isn't hard. For a destroyer, there aren't many types of radar that can be installed. Normally, a modern warship has about 6 types of radar. Early warning radar, IFF, identification friend or foe, radar, aircraft guidance radar. Phased array radar, OTH, over-the-horizon, radar, fire control radar. Navigation and collision avoidance radar. For an 80-meter Level 3 destroyer, aside from the navigation radar, 3 to 5 others are mandatory for safety. The rest can be installed based on needs. IFF radar? Don't need it. Once out at sea, even humans can be enemies. Strangers stepping onto my ship? Forget it. Aircraft guidance radar and OTH radar are also unnecessary. I don't even have aircraft to use them with. So, the only ones left are fire control radar, phased array radar, and navigation radar. Both are important, but I have to choose one. I circled the 2 names in my notebook, then started digging through my memories, trying to recall what I'd heard in those military science programs. Phased array radar requires a computer to control the entire antenna array, calculating the phase of the waves for each emitting unit. By changing the shape and direction of the radar waves, it can scan targets extremely fast. This is modern radar technology, which only became widespread from the 90s onward. Naturally, because it's advanced tech, the material and technical requirements are so high that it's not an easy pill to swallow. Meanwhile, fire control radar has been around since the 50s. The technical standards are significantly lower. Phased array radar is great and all, but it costs a terrifying amount of survival points. If I want to build it properly, it'll cost a fortune. I might as well just use fire control radar paired with long-range navigation radar. Even if the accuracy drops, I can accept that. With that thought, I swung my pen and crossed out phased array radar in the notebook. If you're poor, you choose precision. If you're rich, you choose carpet bombing. Whether it's off by 1 meter or 100 meters, if the missile is powerful enough, they'll die either way. As long as I can manufacture short-range ballistic missiles, even if the target is 100 meters from the epicenter, it won't make a difference. And if I miss with one, I'll feed you a whole barrage of 100 rockets. In modern warfare, from destroyers and frigates to cruisers and aircraft carriers, no warship chooses to carry short-range ballistic missiles. Everyone prioritizes anti-ship missiles. The reason is simple. Armored battleships have disappeared. What was the symbol of an armored battleship? Big ship, huge guns, thick armor. But with the power of modern anti-ship missiles, over 90% of them, if fired at those ancient World War II battleships, would just be like scratching an itch. If armored battleships still existed, equipping ballistic missiles like Russia's Kirov class would have its uses. But since they've vanished from the modern battlefield, it's all just theory. So why were such powerful armored battleships abandoned? The answer isn't hard. Modern weapons are too complex, packed with sophisticated components and high tech, making the production cost per cubic meter far exceed that of the World War era. To put it bluntly, the bigger the ship, the more expensive it is. If you were to build a battleship the size of a modern aircraft carrier, because of its massive size, it would need stronger radar, more electronic systems, and a ton of sophisticated equipment. The cost of building that ship definitely wouldn't be cheaper than an aircraft carrier. And when you add expensive missiles to it, the total cost could easily rival an entire carrier strike group. Not to mention, ships at sea are limited by the Earth's curvature. Radar mounted on a ship can't see very far without satellite or aircraft support. To fire missiles, you have to get close to engage. And driving a super expensive ship up close for an artillery duel? Sorry, even the superpowers wouldn't dare play that game. So armored battleships withdrew from history. Now, ship hulls are getting thinner and costs are dropping. Modern missiles, even heavy ones, only need a 500 kilograms warhead to send a warship to the bottom of the sea. Furthermore, modern ballistic missiles have better launch platforms, typically nuclear submarines, stable, stealthy, and convenient. Conversely, launching ballistic missiles from a surface ship is extremely inconvenient. If it's a hot launch, the exhaust flames from the engine could burn up all the electronic systems on the ship. If it's a cold launch, it has to fly high enough to ignite the engine. But a ship is always rocking, which severely reduces accuracy. So the current direction of modern weapon development is inevitable. But that's the real world. This is the post-apocalyptic wasteland ocean. The mindset has to be different. Short-range ballistic missiles, or tactical missiles, are usually used in ground warfare. Equipped with conventional warheads, they strike targets beyond the range of artillery. Take the R-3 for example, 7.1 meters long, 0.82 meters in diameter, weighing 3 tons, using solid fuel, with a range of 320 kilometers and a speed of 960 meters per second, guided by an inertial system combined with digital calculation. Even without modifications, its effective destruction radius is 165 meters, maxing out at 310 meters. Compared to similar ground missiles, the R-3 is smaller, faster, and stronger. Still not enough for my standards. At sea, everyone is constantly moving. When I fire, they're in range. But by the time the missile arrives, they've wandered off somewhere else. For example, if the enemy is 250 kilometers away, I fire the missile, and it takes 4.5 minutes to get there. If the enemy ship is a wooden boat, not even counting tailwinds or headwinds, in those 4.5 minutes, they would have moved 400 meters away, escaping the blast zone. Calculating back and forth, looking at the R-3, I understood, conventional warheads won't cut it. The kill zone is too small. Even if I boost the power with the launch tube, it won't improve much. A lot of times, firing it would just be like setting off fireworks. So I decided, for my remaining days in the shelter, I must go all out to develop a new tech branch, TNT. But not regular TNT, a super version, combining psionic energy water and enhanced nitric acid. Theoretically, 1 kilogram releases about 4.2 million joules. If adding psionic energy water increases it by 100% to 300%, nitric acid by 50%, plus the support modules 5% to 30%, then 1 kilogram could reach up to 18 million joules. Factoring in expansion efficiency and impact force, the actual number is even higher. I plugged the numbers into the equation, calculated the equivalent blast radius, and froze. This type of TNT could increase the destruction radius from 300 meters to a staggering 1.4 kilometers. 1.4 kilometers. That's a level where even the legendary Davy Crockett nuclear artillery shell only reached 500 meters. Meanwhile, for conventional missiles, excluding nuclear ones, a kill zone exceeding 1 kilometer is practically non-existent. Yet, with just a little miracle from the psionic energy water, everything changed. No way. From now on, psionic energy water absolutely cannot be sold recklessly. If it falls into the wrong hands, the consequences would be unimaginable. Even the unupgraded psionic energy water, when mixed into conventional weapons, has terrifying effects. And now it's been upgraded. Thinking about this, I couldn't help but shudder. In an era where explosive yield is justice, as long as I don't hold back and pack it full of upgraded TNT, even the Dongfeng 17 fired at the gates of the Kobold Castle back, then probably couldn't compare to this specially crafted super missile. I shook my head, tossing out those thoughts that only an arms dealer would have, and flipped to a new page to start planning the manufacturing process. I wasn't entirely sure about the specific principles, but once I decided to trade with the authorities, I didn't care about the convoluted politics behind it. I walked straight to the machine tools and pulled out the robot I had previously used to make nitrocellulose. After several continuous production runs, plus my trips to the ruins, the ammo in my shelter was nearly depleted. Machine gun ammo, assault rifle ammo. I only had 1,500 rounds left. Pistol ammo for 100 rounds. Considering the upcoming trade with the Dayuan shelter, and the fact that I'd be sailing a very long distance before reaching the new continent, I'd have almost no chance to produce my own ammo while at sea. Therefore, I waved my hand and decided on an absolutely massive number. Machine guns, 50 units, 800,000 rounds. Assault rifles, 200 units, 500,000 rounds. Pistols, 100 units, 30,000 rounds. Total, 1.33 million rounds, weighing about 14.1 tons. For a destroyer capable of carrying thousands of tons, this was truly a drop in the bucket. As for production materials, with a plan, everything can be calculated. I quickly arranged all the tasks for the day. Teach the robots to mass-produce nitrocellulose, then process it into ammo and store it. Assign the gathering team in Hope Village to mine saltpeter on a large scale. Continue investigating the player interfaces of other races through Connie's panel to see which features the alien races can use and what they are up to. 3 tasks, packing the whole day. After storing the notebooks filled with crazy plans into my inventory, I cleared the desk and began the teaching phase. First time, turning on AI learning mode. I do it, the robot learns. Second time, the robot does it, I guide it from the side. By the third and fourth times, the robot could do it from A to Z on its own, even controlling the material ratios more accurately than I could. Of course, just like the robots in the shipyard, the process from extracting saltpeter to producing nitric acid, converting it to nitrocellulose, and drying it was still very slow. But with the pleasant surprises I'd had earlier, I was in no rush. After checking that the robots were operating normally, I briskly walked out of the base, heading straight for Iron Rock Mountain. Having someone else do the work is truly amazing. Before, if I wanted to mine saltpeter, I had to do it all myself. As soon as I left the shelter, the closer I got to the mountain, the more clearly I saw the impact Hope Village's people had on nature and on their own lives. On both sides of the mountain slopes, within a 300-meter radius, the soil had been churned up by tillers. The only things remaining after months of agonizing starvation were rows of short-cycle scallions. With the specific growth rate and sunlight of this scallion variety in the wasteland, they could even manage to harvest another crop before the seawater flooded in. The deeper I went, the more Iron Rock Mountain's shape had changed under human hands. The lower section, below 15 meters relative to the future sea level, remained untouched. But reaching an elevation of about 18 meters, every 2 meters there was a small stone terrace carved deep into the cliff, creating slightly concave drying beds that perfectly caught the sun. Just wait for the seawater to rise, pump the water in here, and let the sun do the rest. Then we can harvest one of humanity's most vital survival resources, salt. The salt in storage will eventually run out. When mutated creatures become scarce, or the drop rate of alien treasure chests decreases, salt will immediately become a top-tier strategic resource. No iron, no copper, slow development. At worst, it's just difficult. But no salt? Low blood pressure, muscle weakness, loss of reflexes, brain edema, kidney failure, and a slow, lingering death. That is a slow death, agonizing to the point of madness. Good job. Chun Shin truly didn't disappoint me. Later, when we reach the new continent, I can choose a spot near the sea to build a base. Boiling salt while fishing, developing steadily. Thinking further ahead, I got even more excited about the future. Salt could become currency. With a destroyer, I can seize the coastline, build a shipyard, have land, have the sky, and hold absolute power over the sea. Literally, a multi-pronged approach. With such a diverse strategic line, no matter how cunning the enemy is, they'll have a massive headache. I kept walking, passing 4 or 5 salt-drying beds. The elevation had reached about 25 meters, only 15 meters away from the peak. This area was flatter, and a few stone caves had been converted into multi-purpose storage rooms. But before I could observe closely, just as I turned a corner, I saw a familiar figure. Chin Shun was standing at the end of the path. "Brother Su, you're here? I was just about to go down and find you." It's so weird. Yesterday, the core management of the Rust shelter acted all tough, spouting nonsense about human rights and national borders, saying we had no right to interfere. Yet this morning, they woke up and, without exception, all of them cried like babies and confessed everything. They even coughed up a bunch of precious treasures. On Chun Shin's face was full of confusion, but the moment he mentioned treasures, his eyes lit up. "Oh, what kind of treasures make you look like you've struck gold? What grade are they? You've got me curious now." Seeing Chun Shun's eyes shining like flashlights in the dark, I chuckled, patted his shoulder twice, and walked briskly ahead. No matter what, the Rust shelter was once ranked number 2 among tens of billions of people worldwide before the apocalypse. But that title only proved they were lucky in the first 7 days. Not that they could keep up with me after a month, let alone surpass me. Looking back at the 3 disasters that had passed, among the top 10 shelters from the first disaster, aside from mine, which was still active, the rest had practically vanished from the map. Even the government-backed Dayuan shelter was no exception. Of course, this wasn't hard to understand. Luck, in this world, is sometimes incredibly important and sometimes completely meaningless. With the current combat power of the alien races on land, if they faced a human special forces unit fully equipped with basic weapons and lacking any overwhelmingly strong special abilities, the outcome would be singular, total annihilation. Not a single survivor. As for the shelters hidden beneath the undercurrents, their true strength remains a mystery, at least until the Great Naval War truly begins. But in terms of current development potential alone, the Rust shelter probably couldn't even crack the global top 10,000. If they were truly strong, they wouldn't have been deadlocked for hours with a Hope village that only had 3 guns, too afraid to make a move. Hearing my seemingly indifferent question, Chunshin wasn't in a rush. He leaned in close to my ear and whispered, "Brother Su, don't underestimate these guys. They've been using trucks to drive and pillage for days. They must have covered over 3,000 kilometers by now. Just from looting, they've managed to gather an epic item, 2 rare items, and 6 exquisite items. If they hadn't been unlucky enough to bump into us, they probably would have had a chance to crawl to the new continent and start over." Whoosh. The moment I heard the word epic, my calm facade instantly crumbled. Epic? Good lord. Up until now, I've been fighting for a whole month, and if it weren't for timing the ruins perfectly, going back in time, and trapping the abyssal dragon Zeta, I probably wouldn't have even laid eyes on an epic item. The only one I have left is the epic blueprint I traded for during my last visit to the ruins trading hub. Yet a pathetic bunch like Rust actually had an epic item? Are epic items as cheap as cabbage now? Seeing my expression finally heat up, Chunshin laughed in delight, rubbed his head, and led the way up to the peak. According to Hope Village's old internal rules, all loot from prisoners had to be inventoried in the presence of the entire management board before being stored. For unranked items, like food or basic resources, they just needed to write a report, get the logistics manager's approval, and then Chunshin would inspect and record it. After each cycle, all the ledgers were compiled for my final approval. It sounds tedious, but this method practically eliminated corruption and embezzlement. When something was urgently needed, no one had to pull strings to get it. But ranked items were much more complicated. During inventory, such items had to be sealed by all the managers and stored on a special shelf. If anyone touched them, they bore full responsibility. The management board cross-monitored each other, leaving no loopholes. If anyone wanted to use a high-tier item, it had to be approved and signed by all managers, including Chunshin, then submitted to Chunshin for a final check. After that, it came to me for the final signature to withdraw it. Even the village chief, Chunshin, couldn't touch them on his own. I was the one who co-authored this process, so I was always satisfied with it and never found it bothersome. The path up the mountain, however, was not pleasant. Both sides of the slope were now packed with prisoners from the Rust shelter. They were tied up in clusters, lined up along the cliff. Walking and observing, I witnessed exactly what Chunshin had said. Yesterday during the interrogation, when these guys saw me, they only showed fake fear. Fear because their lives were in my hands, not fear from the bottom of their hearts. But today, just as I turned a corner, the first prisoner screamed the moment he saw me, and immediately after. All of them completely changed their attitudes, without exception. Every single one of their eyes was filled with terror and a desperate thirst for survival. I was used to that emotion. It was the exact same look Chunshin's group had when I saved them from the saltpeter mine. The look of the weak when they meet someone strong enough to cling to. But knowing their current status as prisoners, they didn't dare make a move. They just quietly parted to the sides, looking at me with a mix of awe and admiration. Once past the crowded section, the path to the peak cleared up. The salt-drying beds and mining areas on the slope were being constructed exactly according to the technical blueprints I had reviewed. Those blueprints were made by a professional construction team that Hope Village had hired at a high price. I had scanned them thoroughly with the system, found no design flaws, and approved the construction. Thanks to magical tools and the crafting interface, even though they were just commoners, their efficiency matched master builders. The speed was incredibly fast. Last time, interrogating Lioness Connie was too rushed, so I didn't get a good look at this place. This time, walking and observing, I clearly saw the changes and silently nodded. In just a few short days, the construction progress on the peak had leaped forward. At the summit, what used to be an empty stone platform had now become a multi-layered structure. For massive pillars stood at the four corners, supporting a pavilion-style domed roof. The roof curved downward, creating an overhang that wrapped around the entire area. This design allowed rainwater to flow down without affecting the living area inside the mountain, while still letting in natural light during the day. The interior was dug down about 3 meters, creating a large sunken space, reinforced with thick steel plates to ensure the ceiling wouldn't cave in or collapse. Walking down the stone steps step by step felt like stepping into another world, especially when entering the brightly lit cave area. Good job, Chen Shun. With your abilities, just being a village chief is a waste. On the cave walls were the names of all the villagers and their work points. No empty platitudes, no motivational slogans, no fake chicken soup. I walked over, gently tracing the rough carved letters on the wall, and sighed. Whether in the post-apocalyptic world or a corporation on Earth, when it comes to benefits, slogans and passion are just words to trick the newbies. Wanting to sustain that long-term is pure delusion. If a large group wants to bond and strive, they don't need team building, they don't need morning motivational sessions. They just need proper weekends off, no forced overtime, leaving half an hour early on Fridays, and an average industry salary. That's enough for employees to follow you for life. In this wasteland, it needs to be even clearer. It just needs to be fair, just, and transparent. If you can achieve those three things, you don't have to worry about people slacking off, nor do you have to fear the shelter won't develop. This was something my dad, a former military man who transitioned to civilian work, always emphasized. Many times during dinner, he would casually weave management knowledge into his stories for everyone in the family to ponder. I didn't expect Qin Shin to understand that principle too. If he were still on Earth, given the right opportunity, he definitely would have achieved great things. Brother Su, don't say that. I only know how to do these trivial things. Whether the villagers live well or not still depends on you fighting out there. Without you holding the line, peace is just an illusion. All right, here you go again, kid. I quickly cut him off. Even though I knew he was being sincere, hearing it too much was tiring. I walked briskly inside. Chen Shun could only shake his head and smile, his eyes still holding that unique look of deep respect. For a manager like Chen Shun, having a boss like me is a dream come true. No need to suck up, no need to bow down. Just do your job well. In the apocalypse, that's a luxury. I walked and waved at the working villagers, receiving their respectful gazes from afar. After a few turns in the cave, reaching the very end, I realized this supply room was anything but simple. It was dug a whole level deeper than the residential area. The entrance to this level was so well camouflaged that if Chun Shun hadn't lifted the wooden planks, I wouldn't have even noticed the trapdoor. A narrow ladder, just wide enough for one person. Above were 3 layers of security hatch doors, each nearly 10 centimeters thick. Upon closer inspection, I was startled. It wasn't ordinary iron, but the same alloy as the main door of my shelter. With this alloy, even smashing it all day with a refined pickaxe wouldn't leave a scratch. Of course, it still had a weakness. If thieves knew this was a vault, they could dig through the side walls. But this place was deep in the heart of Hope Village. A single strike of a pickaxe would echo like a drum, loud enough to be heard halfway up the mountain. For now, it wasn't a concern. The 3 doors opened. I climbed down the ladder about 3 meters and stepped into a room roughly 50 square meters wide. Shelves were set up against the walls, holding about 14 or 15 neatly sealed items. But seeing the faint blue glow they emitted, I immediately knew they were all low-level good-grade items. I didn't see anything like what Qin Shun had described. Hold on, Boss Su. This is just the outer layer. Inside, we built something much more secure. As he spoke, Qin Shun turned on his flashlight and shined it along the wall. A hidden mechanism? I was surprised and a bit amused. My own vault had a hidden mechanism like that. One press, and the door to the armory would open. I didn't expect Hope Village to use this technique for their supply vault. Soon enough, Qin Shun found the 3 trigger points. He pressed lightly, and a section of the wall revealed a hidden rotary dial. Qin Shun grabbed it and turned it hard. The wall slowly flipped around. As it turned, Faint rays of light flickered, then burst into a brilliant glow. Blue for excellent grade, purple for rare grade, and a dazzling orange for epic grade. The three colors blended together, as if a treasure trove was opening right before my eyes. Inside was the loot confiscated from the rust shelter. The epic grade item gradually came into view. This thing looks really weird. Is this a black pot? I had seen super tier concepts, even owned a luxurious epic grade blueprint. I thought an epic item would be some kind of divine artifact. Who would have thought that right in front of me was a pitch black pot? I was completely stunned. As if anticipating my reaction, Chun-Shin burst out laughing. Boss Su, God really has eyes. When we first confiscated this pot, everyone who saw it had the exact same look on their face as you do now. But look at its stats. If we get enough points later on, this thing is an absolute, invincible divine artifact. I don't know what kind of dumb luck those Rust guys had to pick up something so overpowered. Hearing Chun-Shin hype it up, I walked over curiously and picked up the pot. It wasn't too heavy, probably around 5 to 8 kilos. But with a diameter of 38 centimeters, it was nearly twice as heavy as an old-school cast-iron wok on Earth. A faint orange glow radiated around the pot's body. The pitch-black enamel seemed to swallow the light. One look and you knew it was no ordinary item. Even if this wasn't an epic-grade item, just as a regular pot, its quality was already top-tier. Especially this wooden handle. Gripping it felt like holding jade, yet it wasn't slippery. Stir-frying with this would feel amazing. I spun the pot a few times like a pro chef, my fingers tracing the complex patterns inside. Finally, I nodded in satisfaction. As a foodie, I really love this pot. Still enjoying the feel of it, I took a deep breath, focused my mind, and activated appraisal. Since someone had already spent points to appraise it, the info panel popped up instantly. Oh, cooking buffs? Can prepare epic-grade dishes? Line after line appeared. When I reached the part that said spending points could upgrade a normal dish to epic grade, my eyes lit up. No wonder Chun-Shin praised it so much. If I had enough points to cook epic grade meals, who could even mess with me? But then, my eyes stopped at a line further down with a lock icon, and my whole body went cold. Wait a minute. What is this? This lock wasn't like an unlocked skill. It wasn't a temporary seal like Oreos. It looked like it was covered by a layer of black mist. It was as if something was intentionally blocking the ability panel from displaying. A familiar feeling, like I'd seen it somewhere before. Black mist. Wait. Last time in that bizarre space, the two blueprints I brought out had the exact same mist. Before I could think any deeper, the system inside my body started screaming frantically. A piercing buzz exploded in my ears. I remembered that sound perfectly. When I took the two blueprints from the ruined space, the system had warned me. When the welfare disaster ended and the golden lights swept over me, the system had warned me too. But those two times, despite the urgency, the sound was stable. But this time, the buzzing was like war drums, as rapid as a thunderstorm. My whole body trembled violently, not out of fear, but a physiological reaction, like being electrocuted. This is bad. There's a huge problem with this pot. The system wants to intervene. No, there's someone else here. I gritted my teeth, my whole body taut as a bowstring. I curled up, forcing down all the tremors surging from deep within my body. I roared, Chun-Shin, get out. Close the hatch. Wait outside and lock the doors. Without my order, no one is allowed to enter. My shout rang out like a bell exploding in his brain. Chun-Shin froze, but a second later, he understood. Seeing me sweating bullets, my whole body shaking like I was about to collapse, he didn't ask a single question. He turned and sprinted up the ladder. Clang, clang, clang. The three heavy iron doors slammed shut one after another. As the final echo faded, I couldn't hold back anymore and gave the system full control. Boom. The entire basement seemed to drown in a bizarre red and black light. My body glowed, from my hair down to my fingertips. Beams of light surged out, crashing onto the pot. The pot, which had looked harmless, now began to shake violently, as if struggling to break free from my grasp. A dense black mist poured out from its surface. The pot seemed to have a soul of its own, hovering and trying to escape. But its opponent was the system. Once the system made its move, it had no chance. The moment the red and black light touched it, the pot instantly froze. The black crust coating it began to peel off in chunks, like dry bark being stripped away. Before they even hit the ground, they were incinerated completely, leaving not a single speck of dust. But due to limited output, every centimeter of the pot took 3 to 5 seconds to clean. The process was agonizingly slow. I leaned against the wall, my body feeling like a furnace. My internal temperature skyrocketed, as if a fire was burning me from the inside out. The classic of mountains and seas card glowed and flew out of my storage space. It hovered above my head, radiating a gentle silver light, helping to suppress some of the heat. As for me, I poured psychic energy water over my head like an ice bath. Sizzle, sizzle. The water hit the heat, and thick steam billowed out. In just a moment, the entire basement was engulfed in dense white fog. 1 minute, 2 minutes. The black crust on the pot was still being slowly eroded, and I was standing on the brink of total exhaustion. Arg, hurry up. I can't hold on much longer. With every passing second, the system's red and black light tore apart every muscle fiber and tissue in my body, only for the mountains and seas card to instantly patch them back together. The two opposing forces constantly ripped me apart from the inside out. The pain was 10 times worse than physical torture. If my body hadn't been tempered and upgraded by cards and psychic energy water, I would have passed out in the very first second. Luckily, the system sensed I was about to break. Just as my body reached the absolute limit of collapse, a fierce burst of light erupted. The final layer of coating on the pot was stripped clean, turning to ash and vanishing. Clang. With nothing holding it up, the pot crashed to the ground, making a deafening sound. But I had already collapsed before it did. My whole body convulsed. I didn't have a single ounce of strength left to care about the item. I was so exhausted I just wanted to die and get it over with. Those 2 minutes of the system unleashing the red and black light felt like being dragged back and forth through the gates of hell dozens of times. If I didn't have the classic of mountains and seas card today, or the psychic energy water, if I lacked even one of them, I'd be dead for sure. Damn it. This black pot. The Rust guys couldn't handle it. The Hope Village people couldn't handle it. And it ended up on me. One moment of carelessness, and I'd be dead. From now on, whenever I deal with high-level items, I have to be extremely careful with every little detail. If what just happened flared up again, I'm not sure I'd survive. I panted heavily, my eyes glued to the ceiling. When the pain wrung out of every muscle fiber finally faded, I truly understood that the absence of pain is pure happiness. The classic of mountains and seas cards circled above my head, continuing to weld shut every internal tear in my body. I lay flat on the floor for over 10 minutes. Only when my body felt light again and the card's glow faded did my breathing finally stabilize. Huh, that hurt like hell. This time the damage went straight to the core. I'll need to rest and recover for a while. The card can heal physical wounds, but no one can save depleted cells. They just have to regenerate on their own. But the price was worth it. While my muscles were being torn apart and stitched back together, my endurance and muscle strength skyrocketed. Once I fully recover, my physique will definitely meet the requirements to upgrade the shelter to level 5. Resting a bit longer, I opened the game panel, sent a message to Chun Shun to tell him I was safe, and then used the cabinet to pull myself up. As soon as I sat up, I saw the pot in front of me. Holy shit. What the hell is this? This isn't an epic grade item. This text says, unique item. The black pot from before was gone. In its place was a jade pot, radiating a faint green glow mixed with a mystical ruby red. Green and red, two seemingly clashing colors, blended together so beautifully it looked mythical. Without hesitation, from a safe distance, I activated appraisal. This time, the system emitted a gentle green light, the color of hope. The green beam entered the jade pot, then slowly dissolved. But the stat panel didn't appear immediately. Instead, a green mist formed above the pot, gathering into a hazy image. Then, a female system voice rang out, something incredibly rare. In an era when technology reached its zenith, humanity's footprints spread across the three-dimensional universe. They sought to transcend the third dimension and step into a four-dimensional civilization, but they could not find the path. The limits of perception blocked them. Unimaginable, insurmountable. But during their research, they discovered something called authority of rules. Just as 2D creatures cannot comprehend how their world operates, nor see the ones controlling them, similarly, in the 3D world, gravity, energy, molecular collisions, all are manipulated by an invisible hand. Unable to break through the four-dimensional cognitive wall, humanity changed course. They sought to manipulate gravity, energy, evolution, and life. They wanted mythical power, to move mountains with a wave of a hand, to shatter the sky with a stomp. In other words, to become the dragon, one must defeat the dragon. The image vanished. I tried to look closer, but I couldn't see anything else clearly. Only the system's words remained, as if carved into my brain. Right after, the item info panel popped up. And just reading the item's name sent a shockwave through my entire body. Black Pot. 1% authority to manipulate the wasteland. Just seeing that first name pop up, I could feel that what followed would be even more insane. Sure enough, as I sat up straight and focused all my attention on reading the info panel, I still had to take a sharp breath of cold air. Black Pot. 1% authority to manipulate the wasteland. Description. In this desolate wasteland, there are explorers who exhaust all their strength to cross the fog. There are ambitious schemers who sacrifice billions of lives to plot their ascension. And there are righteous thieves who would rather die on their feet than live on their knees, rising up against oppression without hesitation. Authority is like fine wine. It gives people a taste of power, but also drowns them in sweet illusions. At the same time, it is a massive black pot, a scapegoat. Once you choose to hold it, you must bear the title of a thief, despised by the masters of authority for life. Current authority, 1%. Authority definition, food. Authority ability. Every 15 days, I have the right to freely modify the grade or attributes of any food item. Does not stack. Each use resets the cooldown. As authority increases, the cooldown will decrease. The price. I will be marked as a thief and have my entire game interface locked by the game until my authority exceeds 51%. Every time I modify food, the system will take notice. The more I modify, the easier it is to be discovered. If discovered, the authority will be forcibly revoked, and I will be marked as a rebel. Within a 500,000 kilometer radius, the disaster rate will increase by 500,000 times. If I keep the pot but do not inherit the authority, every day I will fall into a cycle of luck. Roll a 6, guaranteed harvest. Roll a 1, unavoidable bloody disaster. Evaluation. A righteous person is not swayed by power, nor subdued by profit. Even if the whole world turns against them, they will not change their principles. That is the courage of a gentleman. 1% authority allows me to freely modify the grade and attributes of any food item in the wasteland. That means if I want it to be epic, it becomes epic. If I want it to be legendary, that works too. I could even add an effect where eating it makes you fly straight into the sky, and it wouldn't be a problem. Anyone else seeing this would probably feel a chill down their spine. Not me. My guts are bigger than that. The 4 lines of the price were like 4 hammers smashing down on my head. Any one of them could send someone straight to the grave. But I didn't back down. Fear comes from the unknown. The more you know, the less you fear. For a 10% profit, people will act. For 50%, they'll take risks. For 100%, they'll trample on the law. And for 300%, they're willing to spill their own blood. No one dares to hold the black pot, but I'm different. I don't just want this authority. I actually like the title of thief. The pain had passed, and my body was stable again. I stood up without hesitation. I walked over to the jade pot and lifted it. There's a Chinese saying, a thief can steal for 1,000 days, but no one can guard against a thief for 1,000 days. If you don't want to guard against a thief, there's only one way. Become the thief yourself. The rust shelter falling into ruin wasn't a coincidence. Anyone holding this pot has to roll for luck every day. Rolling a 1 means death. That's the price of power. No one can escape the allure of a divine epic-grade cooking treasure, but no one can avoid the bad luck either. The weak die without knowing why, and the pot is passed to the next person like a relay race. The explorer dies, leaving behind ruins. The schemer dies, leaving behind a mysterious legacy. The thief dies, leaving behind faith and ideals. So what if they die? As long as the pot remains, as long as there are new creatures in the wasteland, as long as there are those who covet epic items, this journey will never end. The weak holding the pot are just courting death. The strong know what's inside, yet still can't resist. After witnessing the 3 generations in the wasteland, explorer, schemer, thief, I finally understood the madness of humanity in the face of the apocalypse. I thought climbing to this level in just a month was crazy enough. But it seems humanity has never lacked crazy people. You guys dare to be crazy? Why shouldn't I, Suemo? Compared to those dreamers wanting to fly into the sky and break spatial limits, I prefer the practical madness of the thief. It's clear, goal-oriented, and puts authority right in your hands. Why fly into the sky? Go to a new world just to die early? Be a little rational. We have a saying, surround the cities from the countryside. The thief holds 1% authority. So what? I have the system. As long as I gather 51% of the authority, I become the controlling shareholder of the entire wasteland. When that time comes, let alone disasters, this whole world will have to listen to me. The more I thought about it, the more excited I got. Compared to vague concepts like the 4th dimension, mastering the rules of the current dimension is the true foundation. Don't dream of breaking limits when you don't even understand where you stand. I have to master this world first. The jade pot in my hand trembled slightly, radiating a red light that spread up my arm. Right then, a faint sound rang out, and a notification panel appeared before my eyes. Log. The current 1% authority requests to be transferred to the account of employee Suemo. Warning. After the transfer, you will lose all benefits as an employee of the Wasteland Company. Confirm transfer? Oh, interesting concept. The Wasteland is like a company, and the players are employees. Authority is shares. But who says having shares means you lose your rights as an employee? Only kids make choices. I'll take it all. I chuckled, full of hidden meaning. I didn't rush to confirm. Instead, I reached out, dragged the notification bar to the very bottom, and opened my inventory with a thought. A card, something I hadn't touched or even mentioned since the beginning, quietly floated up into the air. It was the legendary card, one of my strongest trump cards. I chose to use the skill, Sun and Moon Swap. Perhaps this small supply vault, painstakingly built by the villagers of Hope Village, never expected that on its very first day of use, it would witness one top-tier item after another being revealed. From the classic of mountains and seas, to 1% authority to manipulate the world, and now the light of a legendary card. The luck of this room is also my luck. I didn't hesitate. The legendary golden light erupted, engulfing the entire space. When I opened my eyes, I had stepped into another dimension. Just like when I used the classic of mountains and seas, in front of me was a clay statue that looked exactly like me, from height and build to every facial feature. If it weren't for the clay material, no one could tell which was the person and which was the statue. Sigh, this face is truly perfect. Just a few minor tweaks needed. In front of the statue was a table holding a complete set of sculpting tools. Time in this space was separate from the outside world. I could sit here tweaking for a whole day, and only a single second would pass outside. So, I leisurely summoned a chair, sat down, and started modifying. The face stays the same. With handsome looks like this, why change it? But small details like childhood fall scars, ugly moles, and slightly flat feet, those had to be fixed. Being 185 centimeters tall, but wearing size 42 shoes and having flat feet? Unacceptable. Give me perfect model proportions. About an hour later, when I stood up, the statue still retained its original look, but every minor detail and its overall aura had completely changed. Put the two side by side, and without looking at the face, no one would guess they were the same person. Beautiful. Once you fix all the genetic flaws, a human can truly be as beautiful as a sculpted statue. Now then, time to set the identity. To avoid trouble when using this new identity, I didn't change the voice, face, or gender. But in the name section, I raised my hand and wrote a name that was both badass and a bit edgy, Yangjian. Inspired by that little brat Su Kan, who always came up with the most ridiculously salty names, I decided to go all out. The name was entered, and the confirmation process began. The light flared up again. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the vault. The new body, wow. It felt unfamiliar, but incredibly comfortable. Before I could even roll my shoulders to warm up, the system notifications exploded. Welcome to the Doomsday Survival game. You have arrived in an unfamiliar world. Survival is your only goal. Log. Detected player Yang Jian belongs to the 3rd deployment batch. Welfare received, 2 lottery spins. Spinning. System error. Reward changed to alien binding, 1 time. Compensation, 1 additional spin. Result, material substitution card, rare, +1. Have a happy experience with me. Yeah, skip that. You blood-sucking leeches. Today, the guy you squeeze dry drop by drop, will show you exactly what it feels like to have your blood sucked. I closed all the notification panels, glanced at the turtle shell and the material card, and without hesitation, reached out and grabbed the jade pot, activating the authority link. Link selected. And since the jade pot had just absorbed all the identity info I provided, the process this time was much simpler. I closed all the warning windows caused by the authority issue. Then I plopped down on the ground, quietly waiting for the distribution to finish. The game wasn't some higher existence standing above the wasteland. It was more like a steward. Before I split the shares, it could still manipulate rules related to food. But once I used the jade pot to take away 1% of the shares, that control would vanish. Forever. Unless I die or voluntarily return it. If I later acquire the shares for temperature, then in future disasters, it won't be able to arbitrarily raise or lower the temperature either. Holding shares isn't just about wielding power. It's the strongest shield for survival. The pot was like a key, unlocking the vault of power hidden deep within this desolate world. As I set the pot down and stood in this cramped vault, I unconsciously gained a deeper understanding of authority. At the same time, I got a completely new perspective on the so-called War of the Gods from the Ocean cinematic. If the authority of this world was previously held by a group of gods, then one day, for whatever reason, most of that authority was revoked. The more authority the game has, the more disasters it can create. The gods who lost their authority naturally couldn't fight back. Even if they died permanently, entities like the sea god probably made preparations in advance. They gave up most of their authority but kept the crucial core, surviving because of it. To avoid being hunted down, they sealed themselves away, sleeping somewhere, waiting for the right moment. So what does the game want? Sitting cross-legged on the ground, I felt the flow of authority information pouring into me while analyzing the true intent behind the impending ocean wave. Does it want the sea god to wake up and fight for authority? Impossible. It went crazy over just 1% of the food shares. How could it dare to let the ocean loose? No, that's not right. If it doesn't want the sea god to wake up, why not just drop a disaster and annihilate him completely? Unless, right now, the sea god isn't waking up to reclaim his power. But rather, the game, through some tricks, has roughly pinpointed the sea god's location. If that's the case, in this cramped vault, my mind grew incredibly sharp. Every detail, every layer of information was crushed and analyzed in my head. A hypothesis flashed through my mind. Taking advantage of the fact that the linking process wasn't finished and the character panel was still usable, I immediately opened the interface, went to the Friends tab, and started searching. My target was simple, Yang Jian. Currently, the number of players found with the name Yang Jian was 318. Counting me, the last one to join, that made a total of 319. I memorized that number, counted down exactly 1 minute, and opened the game interface again. Sure enough, the list had plummeted. Only 211 people left. No rush. I waited another minute. The number dropped straight to 123. Before I could even exit the interface, the number suddenly ticked down to 122, full of hidden meaning. These people named Yang Jian weren't like normal players. When a normal player dies, their avatar turns gray and you can't add them as a friend. But them? They vanished completely from the search interface. As if they never existed, never stepped foot into this wasteland, never participated in this bloody game. Just as I thought. As a steward, the game can't pinpoint my exact location. It only knows that someone named Yang Jian stole 1% of the authority. So, with a better to kill by mistake than let one slip mentality, it banned every player named Yang Jian, locking all their game functions, forcing me, the clueless Yang Jian, to activate the authority myself. Stupid, but effective. While I was still analyzing, the account sealing process continued. I didn't hold out any hope. By the 4th minute, an invisible wave of light swept through. Not only did the turtle shell and card on the ground explode into fine dust, but even the game control panel went completely dead. No matter how I called it, there was no response. As the last person to appear in the wasteland, the 319th Yang Jian, my being sealed meant that the other 318 people had been completely wiped out. Haha, so that's the trick, huh? Not bad. Seal it all you want. What does blocking Yang Jian's rights have to do with me, Suimo? Understanding the game's trick, I suddenly felt strangely relieved and let out a hearty laugh. To the 318 brothers who got caught in the crossfire because of me, I could only silently apologize. The road ahead only goes in one direction. Even if I could choose again from the start, the result would be the same. I wouldn't hesitate. Sure enough, those who didn't trust the game and chose not to use the control panel were the ones who had it right. This damn game isn't trustworthy in the slightest. The Authority Link progress bar still had 30% left. It wasn't convenient to switch back to my real identity to see what the World Channel was chatting about, so I could only wait in silence. Luckily, it didn't take long. About 10 minutes later, the jade pot in my hand trembled violently, then dissolved into glowing dust and vanished in the vault. Authority Link complete. At that exact moment, the world in my eyes changed. Everything, from the floor, the cabinet, down to the specks of dust, had its own distinct flavor. With just a slight thought, I knew that even a speck of dust could emit the mouth-watering aroma of braised pork. Huh. So this is why everyone wants to be a shareholder of Earth. Color aroma. The Food Authority isn't just about grades or attributes. No wonder it takes up a whole 1% of the total authority. The more I felt it, the more I understood its miraculous power. Why does holding the Food Authority require a 15-day cooldown per use? The reason is simple. For example, if I want to add a Never Spoils attribute to food. To do that, I don't just need the Food Authority. I also have to borrow the authority of physical form, the authority of microorganisms, the authority of air contact, all sorts of related authorities. These total authorities have to coordinate just to create one simple attribute. And to borrow them, the Food Authority needs time. Exactly like filing a request for interdepartmental support in a massive corporation. Unless you're upper management or the CEO, then you can do whatever you want. Even if you dissolve the company, no one can stop you. That being said, the purpose of this upcoming ocean attack is crystal clear. The game has grasped the sea god's rough location, and it wants to reclaim the remaining authority in his hands. But it's powerless. The sea god doesn't use the game panel, so he can't be punished. Without an exact location, it has to use loopholes. So it rolled out this update. The most terrifying trick here is that it never says outright, go find the sea god. Instead, it subtly baits everyone. The sea god is about to wake up. Whoever is fastest gets to be his divine envoy. And it even hints, the sea god is super weak right now. You can kill him. It looks dumb at first glance, but it's incredibly effective. Half a day ago, even I almost fell for it. From the moment every creature in the wasteland bought into this update, the game's goal was achieved. From the very beginning, its calculations were flawless. It turned itself into God, one hand unleashing disasters, the other handing out the hope of survival. A slap and a stroke. Who has time to be suspicious? No one asks what the game is, why it has the right to bring disasters, or what its purpose is. By the third round of disasters, having firmly secured its throne, it started showing its true colors, spreading fake news about the sea god waking up. It even handed out exclusive missions to powerful alien races or human shelters. Because they've trusted it for so long, anyone who gets a hidden mission thinks they've hit the jackpot and immediately jumps into action. They don't tell anyone, they don't suspect a thing, and they even drag others along as a smokescreen. Once the sea god is found, the game achieves its goal. So, theoretically, I, who just became the food god not long ago, am on the same front lines as the sleeping sea god. I even have to protect him and make sure no one finds him. The game and the Golden Light have ironclad rules. In my eyes, they don't seem like thinking beings, but rather a piece of programmed logic. Like when the Golden Light inspected my shelter. Even though it saw a ton of anomalies, because there was no direct evidence linking them to me, it let it go. That proves that without evidence, no matter how suspicious it is, the game can't just act on its own. So right now, what the game is doing is just trying to find evidence to break its own inherent logic. and finding the sea god's location is the biggest piece of that evidence. As for the 5 great royal clans, turned into disposable tools, they probably don't even realize that the moment they find the sea god might also be the moment they are annihilated. A 500,000-kilometer radius, disaster rate increased by 500,000 times. If I, a true wolf, jumped out right now, it wouldn't matter how strong the sea god is. He'd be dead for sure. Thinking back to half a day ago, I was still daydreaming about watching the show, waiting for the aliens to kill the sea god so I could loot the corpse, claim the reward, and casually sail to the new continent to develop. And now, from a spectator enjoying the show, I've become a comrade in arms on the same front lines as the sea god. I even have to moonlight as the protector of Sleeping Beauty, keeping the evil witch's guards from finding him. This is way too surreal. No, wait. If I turn against the game, the sea god has to die. If the sea god turns against the game, I have to die too. 2 wolves. In some situations, they can be allies. But in others, you have to make absolutely sure the other one doesn't bite back. So, assuming we both survive this disaster, what will I think? What will he think? Think about rebelling? But if rebelling was possible, we both would have done it from the start. Choose to keep hiding? But if I'm not at ease letting him keep hiding, will he be at ease trusting me to keep his secret? I sat flat on the vault floor, facing a sea god who was being hunted by all of humanity, all the alien races, and the game itself. My mind spun like a top. I drafted all sorts of scenarios for when we meet. Scenario A, we meet. One is the food god, one is the sea god. Both belong to the exploited class. Both want to overthrow the dictatorial game. The sea god turns out to be incredibly naive and doesn't doubt my identity at all. Result: cooperation, fighting side by side, full of hot-blooded passion. Scenario B, the sea god is much stronger than me. Knowing I'm also a god, and a super weak one at that, he gets greedy and tries to silence me. Unexpectedly, I have the system and counterattack. Result: successful counterkill. The sea god rests in peace. Scenario C, the sea god has lived too long and is too cunning. Outwardly cooperative, but secretly plotting to eliminate me to tie up loose ends. Result: a life-and-death battle is inevitable. Scenario D, I drafted dozens of scenarios, with the initial condition being that I couldn't strike first. Finally, the statistics gave the result. The probability of ultimately having to fight was 92%. The probability of true cooperation was 3%. Fighting the moment we meet, sea god loses, 2%. Sea god self-destructs, dying together with the game, 2%. I get killed, 1%. Total, 100%. Expressions, words, actions, all can be faked. Logic can be twisted, but data never lies. Just based on basic statistics, I could clearly see the picture I was about to face. We have a 3% chance of cooperating, but a 97% chance of fighting. Sigh, this game really isn't stupid. This is nothing less than an open conspiracy it doesn't even bother to hide. And I have no other choice. I stood up, feeling my powerful new body, brimming with the food authority. This time, I removed the condition of not striking first. I rebuilt the statistical table based purely on doing whatever I wanted. No more moral limits, no more tied hands. I put myself into every scenario. The number of variables increased. 12 scenarios. And in all of them, a glaring number appeared, 100%. It seems, instead of worrying if the sea god will strike, I should be asking myself, can I hold back? I tore up the paper that said 100% chance of striking, then once again felt the power of the authority. With a single thought, the space around me blurred. The powerful body and the identity of Yang Jian vanished. In its place was the real Su Mo, a weak body covered in injuries. The great hermit hides in the city. The lesser hermit hides in the mountains. I tried opening the game control panel. All functions were working normally. I smiled. Unlike the sea god who had been roughly pinpointed, Yang Jian, who had just become the food god, was standing right in front of the game's eyes, and it was completely oblivious. With the system's help, I believed that even if my second identity was exposed, I could still use survival points to camouflage myself and escape. How interesting. Being a mole really has a certain thrill to it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. This trip was originally just to take a look along the way. If there's a chance to butcher the sea god, Why would I pass it up? Now, I won't wait anymore. I have to actively dive into the vortex, running ahead of everyone else. All these people want to fish in troubled waters. Everyone wants to stand in the back and be the Oriole that reaps the benefits. Well then, I'll ruin it all. What ocean? Starting tomorrow, we're launching a nationwide Hunt the Sea God campaign. Having thought it through, I no longer hesitated. As long as I'm not the first one to find the sea god, whoever finds him first, all other creatures will have to die. So, instead of leaving the situation quiet for those clever bastards to follow the clues, I have to stir up chaos. Massive chaos. Let's see who has the guts to surface. Thinking of this, I slightly shifted my thoughts, opened the friend's interface, and sent the order to open the door to Chin Shun. Then, while waiting, I started carefully examining the remaining two items. Two rare-grade items, the ever-burning lamp and the folding canvas chair. In terms of form, both were ordinary items with no manufacturing value. But they were rare-grade, so naturally, they weren't bad. Ever-burning lamp absorbs all types of light, from fire to sunlight. Stores a maximum of 150,000 units. Provides continuous illumination for 3 hours. Perfect for going out to sea. Lighting up the night during naval battles. Acting as a beacon or an emergency light. It's useful for all of that. But it has a fatal limitation. It must be fixed in one location to be used. Want to move it? Pay 1,000 disaster points. Because of this restriction, it can't be used as a light weapon, which drastically reduces its value. As for the canvas chair, it was even more impractical. After unfolding it and having someone lie on it, the chair automatically adjusts its mode. Within a 2-meter radius around the chair, all factors like temperature, humidity, lighting, and UV rays are automatically optimized to create the ideal resting environment. In that state, the resting person's recovery speed increases significantly. The only thing is, to me, that effect is just in the nice to have, but fine without category. Physical recovery? I have the classic of mountains and seas. Mental recovery? I have psychic energy water. This chair, if I have spare points, I might upgrade it for fun. If not, whatever. No one in the village could use it anyway. For others, being sealed means a ton of tedious paperwork. But for me, it's just like going home to grab some stuff and telling Chin Shun to put it on the tab. After storing the 2 rare items in my inventory, the remaining good-grade items weren't even worth a glance. At this point, good grade has no value anymore. If the base item isn't practical, even with a good grade label, it rarely has decent attributes. I swept my eyes around. Just then, Chun Shun came running down the stairs, looking frantic. As soon as I saw him set his things down, I walked over to meet him. Boss Suemo, are you okay? What happened just now? It's nothing. I took the pot, the folding chair, and the ever-burning lamp. Do the inventory for me later. I waved my hand dismissively. Seeing him still stammering, as if wanting to ask something, I just smiled and patted the tanned young man's shoulder without bothering to explain further. Authority in this wasteland is the true secret of this world. In my heart, if the system is a level 1 secret, then authority is level 2. Grasping authority means becoming a major shareholder of this world. If everything goes smoothly, under my protection, humanity still has a path to rebuild. But if even one link goes wrong, I still have hope thanks to the system. As for everyone else, including the alien races, all of them will definitely have no way out. I pushed those heavy thoughts aside. Thinking about the crazy things I was about to do, I suddenly chuckled, then asked loudly, Chin Shun, look at those 3 doors. What do they represent? He thought he wasn't going to get any explanation, so being called out unexpectedly made him jump. He quickly looked over. The doors? What do they represent? Safety? As soon as he said it, he shook his head, because he knew for sure I wouldn't ask such an easy question. Secrets? No, that's not right. The passage to the lower level? He threw out 4 or 5 answers, but seeing me still smiling, neither nodding nor shaking my head, Chin Shun immediately grimaced. Boss Suemo, what is it really? Aren't they just 3 doors? Or maybe, weapons? Haha, don't rush. Keep thinking. If I close all 3 doors, and we switch places, I'm up top, and you're down below. Then what? I deliberately played with words. And seeing Chun Shin frown in thought, I started getting more amused. Me down below? You up top. You're on top of me. Seeing the kid's increasingly weird expression, I also realized I had just blurted out something a bit sensitive. But whatever. After a few seconds of repeating every word, then linking it to what had just happened, Chun Shun's eyes suddenly lit up. I get it. The 3 doors represent separation. The person on top can't hear, can't see, and can't touch what's happening below. And the person below is exactly the same. The doors are an information barrier. If the person on top wants to know what's happening below, they just open the door. But the person below, he looked up at the 3 thick iron doors, then shook his head. What if I told you, someone wants to tear down all 3 of these doors? After tearing them down, what will happen? I looked straight at the 3 black iron doors. Without waiting for an answer, I turned and walked up the stairs. My boot soles pounded against the iron steps, the sound echoing loudly. Soon, as I stepped out of the vault, the sound gradually faded. But this time, the doors weren't closed. The light from the fire in the cave still shone down, illuminating the area below, opening a path upward. The strange thing was, even though I had left the cave and returned to the large area outside, Chun Shin still stood frozen in place. As if mesmerized, he looked up at the 3 doors, his eyes full of shock and bewilderment. In history, those who follow the tide hold the empire. Those who go against the tide forge new worlds. But besides those 2, there is another type of person. More special. Just one appearance from them is enough to change the entire world. They don't play by the rules. They don't bow to the laws set by those who came before. They just point straight and say, kings and generals, are they born any different from me? And flip the table. In Chun Shin's eyes, I had always been the type of person who dared to go against the tide, who dared to seize the empire. When I need to be ruthless, I'm cold to the bone. When I need to be calm, I don't show a single flaw. Through raging storms, sometimes hiding, sometimes springing up, I've never lost my way. With enemies, I strike without mercy. With family, I am sincere, sitting and eating with refugees without any distance. From the first time I saved his life, Chun Shin knew I was a good person, someone he could trust. Following me, he didn't have to fear being pushed aside for being too capable or being discarded after doing too much. But right now, when I was radiating an aura of pure madness from head to toe, Chun Shin froze. With his limited knowledge, with his meager understanding of the wasteland, Chun Shin couldn't imagine what on earth had happened in just 1 hour down in the vault to change me this much. Tearing down the doors? Even though he didn't fully understand what I was planning, that crazy feeling in his heart told him, if this succeeds, the entire wasteland will change. The past will end, and humanity will step into a new chapter. Is that a bad thing? He stood dazed, then shook his head, then nodded again. Carrying a heavy heart, he began to walk up the stairs. Every step was as heavy as stone, echoing in the vault. When he stood on the highest step, just 1 pace away from leaving the lower level, Chun Shin stopped again. His eyes looked down at the dark room below, and a flash of realization crossed them. So, we, including me, including Boss Sumo, from the very beginning, have always been on the lower level. What he plans to do is... Thud! His foot slammed onto the cave floor. The sound was loud, dry, and decisive. Outside, nothing had changed. But if anyone looked into Chun Shin's eyes at that moment, they would definitely see an emotion no longer hidden, wild, burning ambition. I didn't know what Chun Shin was thinking. I only knew that the further I walked out of the cave, the more an indescribable feeling surged in my heart. Heroes are born in chaotic times. That saying is absolutely true. After just 1 month living in this lawless wasteland, my desire to be a normal person living a peaceful life had been completely wiped out. What's the fun in opening the door? Tearing the door down completely. Now that's satisfying. It's only been a month into the apocalypse, and social classes have already formed this clearly. Ordinary people, ignorant of the truth, are used by scheming fools and led to the battlefield to die. And those very fools are deceived by the game, pushed down a path of self-destruction. Layers upon layers of information disparity stack up. In the end, those who die might not even know why they died. If that's the case, let it all descend into chaos. At least, let everyone who dies know why they died and what their death means. The game can issue missions. It can control humans and alien races. And I, Sumo, can do the same. In this chaotic era, it might look like the shelter is hope, the place to keep a family safe. But when the nest falls, can any bird survive? If the disasters were truly natural, unstoppable forces, then yes, building a shelter would be the logical choice. But now, knowing there's someone pulling the strings behind the scenes, forcing humanity to carry out missions it deems crucial, an invisible, heavy shackle has already tightened around the necks of everyone still alive. Without breaking that shackle, no matter how strong you are, everyone is just a prisoner of the game. The shelter, in my eyes, it's where I place my hope. But in the eyes of the Hope Village residents, in the eyes of my family, perhaps I am their true shelter. As long as I am strong enough, when I shatter the shackles on my own neck, theirs will break too. If humanity wants to survive in this wasteland, it's not about who has the sturdiest shelter, who has the highest tech, or who can live the longest. What humanity needs is to stand up. Someone has to dare to stand up, just like the righteous thieves of the past. Swish. As I stepped out of the dark cave, the light before my eyes flared up. The sky was still the same sky. The sun was still the same sun. Nothing had changed compared to when I went in. But in my eyes, the world was completely different. The old gods still hiding somewhere in the wasteland. Those who once sought to decode the three-dimensional laws of the universe. The rules hidden between heaven and earth. The entire 100% authority of the wasteland. Compared to vaguely trying to survive, fighting against gods, confronting the game, and uncovering the origin of everything. That is what makes my blood boil. I looked toward the mound where my shelter was. My gaze seemed to pierce through time, seeing the future of this place. Building a shelter for a few dozen people? With my current abilities, that's too petty. But as the situation grew increasingly brutal, I started thinking differently. As long as survival points keep pouring in, my development speed will far exceed the imagination of this damn game. In the future, right here, I will build an underground metropolis housing hundreds of thousands of people. Defenses will rise on the surface, recreating the prosperity of Earth. When that time comes, game, I will definitely fight you to the bitter end. I clenched my fists tightly. Standing high on the mountain slope, the more I thought about it, the more excited I got. A crazy plan gradually formed in my mind. Once it launches, the new continent will become humanity's true base of operations, confronting the game head-on. But right now, I don't have enough power. I still need to act. I need to borrow the game's strength to develop. After calculating and realizing this was a long-term war, I buried all those intentions deep in my heart. I went down the mountain and assigned the saltpeter mining task to the logistics team leader. I had a quick chat with the lioness, Connie, confirming there were no new movements from the alien races. Then I returned to the base with a completely different mindset. Becoming the food god, a minor shareholder of the wasteland, changed my plans, but the grand scheme remained the same. Humanity still needs to gather. The alien races still need to be escorted. Until I bring my sister back, I will stay silent and not cause any incidents. That afternoon, the gathering team brought back enough saltpeter. The weapons and ammunition production line officially entered a stable state. It wasn't time for the disaster yet, but the wasteland was like an ocean with surging undercurrents. Meanwhile, in the valley, my little kingdom, everything remained peaceful. Time passed. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, then 4. I appeared less and less, eventually spending almost the entire day inside the shelter. Other than when the head chef brought my meals, no one saw a trace of me. The villagers were busy building defenses, repairing structures, preparing for the ocean disaster. At night, they even held public trials for the scumbags from the Rust shelter to make an example of them. Having full stomachs, a roof over their heads, and living peacefully as long as they worked. Compared to the countless people out there living in fear every day, the villagers here weren't just safe. They were happy. But the thing that filled them with the most hope was the Earth Dragon. The massive warship slowly taking shape on the ground. Every morning when they woke up, the first thing the villagers did was climb the mountain slope to take a look at the ship. It had become a habit, biting into hot steamed buns, even before the savory dishes were brought out. Just seeing the ship made everyone unconsciously swallow their saliva in excitement. When they were tired, one look at it gave them the motivation to keep working. At the shipyard, the robot entered an explosive phase after the complex foundation work. From 3 minutes per steel plate, it was down to 90 seconds per plate. The furnace produced over 400 steel plates a day. But with its current efficiency, the robot only took 13 hours to assemble all that steel. I spared no expense. When the furnace wore down, I used survival points to repair it. Production instantly jumped to 600 tons a day. In just 6 days, with 11 days left until the disaster, the 100-meter-tall scaffolding was 70% complete. The ship had taken shape. This was a battleship disguised as a destroyer. When someone knowledgeable said that, the whole village immediately understood. What is a destroyer? What is a battleship? The more they understood, the more amazed they were. In their hearts, they firmly believed that once they crossed the ocean to the new continent, as long as they were on this ship, no one could stop us. If a ship this top tier can't make it across, who can? Keeping that spirit, keeping that pace, by the 10th day, with only 7 days left until the disaster struck, the destroyer finally entered its completed shaping phase. I just needed to put today's remaining steel into position and let the robot finish assembling it, and I could move on to phase 2, fine-tuning and testing. Wake up, everyone. It's 6 o'clock. Are you all pretending to be dead asleep? Chi-Chin's gong strike echoed, shaking the entire valley. Banging on a massive gong he dug up from who knows where, he yelled like the house was on fire. Strangely enough, no one complained today. The moment they heard the gong, the villagers sprang up like bees from a broken hive. No one even bothered to dress properly. They just rushed out to assemble. Yesterday, a moderate rain fell in the valley. The rain didn't just quench the thirst of the long drought. It also washed away the oppressive heat, leaving behind a rare, cool atmosphere. When the rain came, the shipyard kept running smoothly thanks to the automated system, but construction in the village had to stop. Luckily, over the past few days, everyone had worked like they were possessed, so hyped up they were ahead of schedule. Seeing that, I immediately approved a day off for them. A day off, in the middle of the apocalypse. It sounded like a joke, but when Chun Shun announced the news, the whole village froze for a few seconds. In Hope Village, their work schedule was wake up and wash at 7 a.m., breakfast at 7:30, work from 8 to 2 p.m., resume work at 3:30 until 6:30, and after dinner, work until 10 p.m. before resting. 3 meals a day, always with a meat dish. Noodles or vermicelli every afternoon. Refreshing drinks brought right to them, depending on the weather. Less than 10 days after moving to Hope Village, everyone's faces were noticeably rosier. They no longer had that sickly look from when they first arrived. If I brought this free food, free housing, no salary model back to Earth, I'd probably get cursed out. But in the wasteland, compared to other shelters that force people to work 14 to 16 hours a day without even enough to eat, Hope Village was an absolute paradise. Actually, what made everyone so excited wasn't just the day off. It was the second piece of news Chun Shin announced. Tomorrow, there will be a ribbon-cutting ceremony for the destroyer. Tomorrow morning, the destroyer will officially finish its structural build and enter the fine-tuning phase. The villagers, of course, didn't understand that fine-tuning meant it still couldn't operate. They only heard about hanging red ribbons, a ribbon-cutting ceremony, and getting to climb aboard to see the destroyer with their own eyes. That was enough to make the whole crowd explode with excitement. From 50-year-old men to 17-year-old teens, everyone went home and immediately changed their plans. No catching up on sleep. We have to wash clothes, take a bath, groom ourselves. Water in the wasteland is strictly controlled. Even melted snow or rainwater is as precious as gold. Each villager is issued exactly 16 liters a week for both drinking and personal hygiene. Run out, and you have to borrow or trade. Yet today, no one spared any water. Everyone crowded around the water collection area to wash clothes and bathe, scrubbing off every speck of dirt. Since entering this wasteland, they hadn't had a change of clothes, so no one had washed anything even once. Everyone had that signature apocalypse survivor stench. Now that they had a day off and the weather was cool, no one cared if their clothes would dry or not. As a result, by afternoon, the large courtyard was hung full of clothes, looking like a vibrant field suspended in the air. Some went to the foot of the mountain to gather clean snow, heating it using their personal fuel quotas. Soaking in warm water for a few minutes washed away all the grime. The leftover water was used to water the vegetables, no waste. Everyone was busy until nightfall, so being woken up at 6 a.m. today didn't make anyone angry. On the other side, in the shelter, I also woke up early, washed my face, and had breakfast as usual. At 8 a.m., the system sent the daily report. Over 1,500 survival points. Not bad. Total remaining points, 28,000. Leaning back on the sofa, looking at the number nearing 30,000 jumping before my eyes. Even though I was used to big waves, I still felt a bit emotional. Over the past 10 days, outsiders thought I was swamped, practically living at the shipyard every day, hyper-focused on completing the schedule. But the truth is, the one sitting in the shipyard every day wasn't me. It was the machining tool, my AI robot. The machining tool was both my trump card and something that absolutely could not be exposed. To the villagers, if they saw its insane efficiency, they might not be happy. On the contrary, they would be terrified of being replaced. And I didn't have the time to reassure them during this phase. So, I had to hide it. As for being in the shelter, true, I wasn't idle at all. The trade with the tundra shelter concluded on the third day. 5 machine guns, 10 assault rifles, 20 handguns, 30,000 machine gun rounds, 10,000 rifle rounds, 5,000 handgun rounds, 10 high-yield explosive packs, a level of luxury bordering on robbery. If I hadn't acted my heart out, emphasizing the importance of the radar, pretending to be desperately thirsty for it, willing to pay any price, there's no way Tundra would have believed that just one fire control radar blueprint and one collision avoidance radar blueprint could be exchanged for that much heavy firepower. But I did it, and they believed it. With this amount of weapons and ammo, let alone a few groups of alien races causing trouble, even if a battalion of several thousand people marched in, if I set up the right defensive line and mounted the machine guns, they'd just be throwing their lives away. With the 2 radar blueprints in hand, production was basically a done deal. I even deliberately emphasized that they were old model radars from the 1980s, used on vintage warships. If you pitted this type of radar against modern tech, it would definitely be obsolete. But in the wasteland right now, it had an absolute advantage. Simple structure, easy to find materials, and easy maintenance. The designers were even thoughtful enough to include blueprints that read like an instruction manual for an amateur like me. Just follow it down to the millimeter, fit every joint perfectly, and the radar would work right away. By the 7th day, with constant comparisons on the LCD screen, plus fabricating the large parts myself, having the system handle the critical components, and buying the small details from the market, the 2 old model radars were finally completed. For the next 3 days, I dove headfirst into system configuration. Operating a destroyer isn't as simple as starting the engine, grabbing the steering wheel, and hitting the gas. An 80-meter-long ship requires a series of interconnected systems. Missing even a single link, the ship won't be able to move. Without a proper operating system, I'd be helpless on my own. And even if I mobilized 100 villagers to help, they'd only mess things up. So for those 3 days, my survival points drained like running water. Having been the food god, the system immediately demanded 20,000 points. Adding the daily income, at one point I had over 50,000 survival points. But once I started spending, I realized it vanished like poured water. Creating a simple item is dirt cheap. For example, attaching a timer to an explosive pack only costs 2 points. But touching on specialized knowledge, like a control system for a destroyer, the system quoted a flat 100,000 points. I tried breaking the system down, dividing the work, then combining it, using the system to merge and debug. The cost was still 40,000 points. With no other choice, I had to take it all on myself, both to save points and to make future maintenance easier. I went into the training ground and buried myself in learning programming. That one move burned 20,000 points. But it wasn't a waste. My programming skills reached a whole new level, and fine-tuning the destroyer system went much smoother. 3 days later, the fire control radar and collision avoidance radar were finished modifying last night. The autopilot system was also at 90% completion. Just one more all-nighter after the ribbon-cutting ceremony, and I could actually install it on the ship. Only 7 days left. I have to speed up. Tomorrow, at the latest, tomorrow, I have to finish the wiring, install the engine, integrate the systems, and start the first round of testing. I closed the system log and opened my storage. Seeing the deep blue heaven-stealing talisman flashing its fully charged status, I narrowed my eyes. I already had a very clear plan in mind. A ship going into the water isn't a ceremony. It's a life or death trial. Even for a small wooden boat, before launching, you have to test for leaks, test the balance, test the systems, test the pumps, a whole procedure. Why? Because missing just one piece of data could mean the ship crashes into a rock mid-voyage and shatters like a wall. But in this wasteland, you can't test anything. Let alone my 80-meter destroyer. Even a 3 or 4-meter homemade boat has nowhere to be dropped in the water for a test run. When the ocean floods in, everyone only gets one chance. Succeed or drown. For others, at worst, they reset their shelter core and use it as a raft to cross the sea. But for me, if the destroyer sinks, time is up. There are no second chances. Fortunately, after a long recovery period, the heaven-stealing talisman's energy had fully recharged 2 days ago. Moreover, my reputation had spread across the wasteland, and my influence on the world had grown rapidly. Thanks to that, not only the previous 2 authorities, but the third authority was also activated. I focused my mind. The system emitted the appraisal light and returned the information. Heaven-stealing talisman, unique. Owner, Su-Mo, linked. Energy, 9/9. Authority 1. Predict the upcoming disaster and make minor adjustments to the situation. Accuracy depends on the player's influence level, currently 3.946%. Authority 2. When prediction is obstructed, pulls the player into a simulated disaster world for practical drills. Duration depends on influence level. Authority 3. When energy is full, the player can actively enter the drill world. As long as they don't suffer fatal injuries, they can exit at any time. Unused energy is retained, not reset. Compared to before, when every use drained all the energy, this is much more convenient. Calculating it, 1 point lasts 1 hour. So each test should be about 3 hours, divided into 3 phases for the best results. Movement test, weapons test, and testing under hazardous conditions. If possible, I'll test the ship's absolute limits too. 3 tests. Each one is priceless. 7 days left. If each test takes 1 day to compile the report and 1 day to make adjustments, 3 ideal tests equal 6 days. That means in the end, I'll have exactly 1 day left to prepare everything for the ocean. Compared to other people's crude wooden boats, my destroyer is racing against the clock, minute by minute. I waved my hand lightly, and the heaven-stealing talisman returned to my storage space. I stood up and walked straight to the equipment room. On Earth, a ribbon-cutting ceremony is just a formality. But in the wasteland, it's the most powerful ritual to ignite collective spirit. It's what makes the villagers proud and united. So when Chun Shin suggested holding one, I nodded immediately, without any hesitation. 8:40 a.m., wasteland time. I finished putting on my combat armor, grabbed my spear, pushed open the shelter door, and stepped outside. In front of the shipyard, all the villagers had gathered, eagerly staring at the massive iron monster before them. By this point, the destroyer had completed all its rough construction, from the command bridge on deck, the functional rooms below, to the cargo hold. Even the interior had been basically cleaned up, thanks to the meticulous work of the machining tool. Only a few critical areas like the captain's quarters, the main energy vault, and the central control room were left empty, waiting for me to arrange them personally. If necessary, moving all the villagers onto the ship right now wouldn't be a problem at all. In terms of shape, the ship no longer looked like a destroyer. Following the philosophy of stack the armor thick, pack the firepower heavy, I had turned it into a battleship. Half-meter thick special steel completely encased the hull. The originally sleek, aerodynamic design was completely gone, replaced by a blocky, ironclad battleship style. As for the height, worried about alien races climbing up from below, I raised the maximum height in the blueprint to 21 meters. A standard 80-meter ship is usually 16 meters high. After floating, it would sit about 11 to 13 meters above the water. Mine, however, was bumped up by an extra 5 meters. Looking at it, it clearly wasn't a destroyer anymore. If I mounted a few 100mm cannons on the deck and declared it a battleship, probably no one would dare object. Seeing me step out from afar, Chun Shun, who had been waiting, ran over with a radiant smile. "Boss Su, today is the happiest day for Hope Village. Everyone is here." A lot of people were so excited they couldn't sleep last night. just wishing for morning to come so they could see the ribbon-cutting ceremony with their own eyes. The ceremony was scheduled for exactly 9 a.m. Right against the ship, a hastily built wooden staircase led straight up to the deck. Both handrails were tightly wrapped in red fabric, giving off a vibrant, festive atmosphere. At the top of the stairs was a red archway, just wide enough for two people to walk side by side. Across the arch was a red ribbon, the starting line for the ribbon-cutting ceremony. By current wasteland standards, a scale like this was considered top-tier luxury. I glanced at it and frowned. Shin, are you starting to get carried away? Wrapping all this red fabric all over the ship, what a waste. Shin didn't panic at all. He quickly stepped closer and explained, Boss Su, we really aren't being wasteful. I picked up a few rolls of fabric at the market. They were super cheap. Yesterday, the whole village was fighting to wash their clothes. After washing, they realized they had nothing left to wear. So I thought, I'll buy some red fabric. We can use it to decorate for the ceremony, and afterward, take it down and sew clothes for everyone. Killing two birds with one stone, he said, scratching his head, not even daring to look straight at my mask. I pulled my mask down, sighed, and gave a helpless smile. I'll let it slide this time. But if you spend like this again, I'm docking your rations. Actually, the current price of fabric is so high that buying regular clothes is cheaper. Shun's little wordplay might fool others. But for someone like me who browses the market every day, yes, I'll definitely learn from this next time. Seeing me smile, Shun breathed a sigh of relief, as if a boulder had been lifted off his chest. Boss Su, it's about time. Shall we head over? Yeah, let's make it quick. I still have a few more test runs to do on this end. Time is tight. I patted Shun on the shoulder, a silent praise for setting up the ceremony so well. Then, the two of us walked toward the ship. The distance from the shelter door to the ceremony area was about 800 meters. Everyone had been here since 8 a.m., but since the ceremony hadn't started, no one forced anyone to line up. They chatted freely, their laughter filling the valley. The ship Boss Su built is absolutely terrifying. My God, you only realize how massive it is when you stand right under it. It's probably gonna rock like crazy at sea. I wonder if I'll get seasick. If you do, I'll find a banana leaf raft for you to sit on. I never even got to ride a ship my whole life on Earth. Who would have thought I'd get to board a warship in this wasteland? When the ocean floods in and Boss Su sails the ship out, Hope Village is gonna become a legend. 80 meters long, 21 meters high. Only when standing before such a colossal block of metal does a person truly realize just how small they are. Behind the bustling crowd, the lioness Coney stood with the two remaining warriors. In stark contrast to the cheering villagers, the three of them were absolutely shell-shocked. Even the high priestess Coney was in a daze. Looking back, surrendering to me earlier had been way too impulsive. Over the past few days, she had constantly questioned herself, even feeling a pang of regret at times. After all, accepting my shelter core meant tying the fate of her entire tribe to my cause. If I won big, the Lion Beast men would have a chance to thrive. But if I made a single misstep, her whole tribe would plunge into the abyss with me.